to order the planning board's regular meeting for November 15, 2023. Alphabetical roll call attendance.
Clark Brewer here.
I'm Callahan here.
Amy Glassmeyer here.
Deirdre
Kevin Hines
Hobson
present.
here. Oh, sorry. Deirdre Hobson here.
Okay, so we have people out there. Do. All right, to everyone out there in the public, we have a very heavy agenda tonight with 2 new applications that require some detail and 2 existing ones that require some level of detail. So give everybody a heads up that we may not get to final decision points with some of them, if not all of them. We have everybody slated for a half hour each, and we'll try to stick to that time limit so that we're not here like town meeting till 11 o'clock. So the order of presentation will be applicant. If we have a consultant here, we'll hear from our consultant. Then the members of the planning board, and then members of the public. People from the public, if you're out there, you want to be recognized, you can either type in comment on the Q&A function, or you raise your hand and you'll be promoted to be on screen. You can have your question or comment live. So our first thing tonight, our first hearing is the continuation of the hearing on a large home plan review for 205 Atlantic Avenue. Whoever's here for the applicant, you have the floor. And again, you're slated for a half hour. Let's try to stick to it.
Sure. Deb Keller with Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors. Cassandra, would it be possible to promote Jamie Kelleher from Axiom? Yeah. And if Sean Papich is on, I think they're the 2 important people. As well as
Sean, but I did just pull Jamie forward. If I see Sean pop up, I'll pull him in.
Great. And Adam Brodsky, if he's also on.
Sure. Yeah. If Adam is with your application, absolutely.
Yes. Thank you. I'll be very brief. I believe the changes since we last spoke, some of the requests were, and Jamie can go in further detail. There was a height requirement that needed to be adjusted. So Jamie worked very hard on the architectural side to make sure that we were meeting that new height requirement. And we have brought Sean Papich on board to prepare some additional detailed landscaping plans that were in the revised package. I believe those are the 2 major changes that were discussed at the last hearing. I did do, from an engineering standpoint, go out and perform 2 additional soil testing test pits within the drainage areas to confirm our design, which has all stayed as designed. I can briefly go through the landscaping plans if we'd like to do that, or hang tight. Maybe Sean will hop on. I don't really want to misspeak for him.
Are there any engineering site plan things that you could go through with us, like we're like you're not in the floodplain and this is Concom fiction, that kind of thing?
Sure, absolutely. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So hopefully you can see site plans.
Yep.
So this is the existing conditions plan. Atlantic Ave is to the south. I'll call it the south. The site again has an existing existing tennis court. Other than that, it is a wooded area. There is a small gravel path that comes up through it. Up to the tennis court. There are stone and ledge outcrops and a stone wall along the beach near the ocean side to the east. Here's a general site plan and grading plan showing the house in the tan color. Driveway comes up off of Atlantic Ave, bends through to an auto court area here. As mentioned, we are removing the tennis court and replacing it with natural vegetation around the edges with a smaller lawn area. The pool is in the back of the house. We're maintaining a rain garden along the driveway here. And we have 2 subsurface chamber systems to capture roof runoff. One in the lawn area here along Atlantic Ave, as well as one in this bend here as you follow up the driveway. Changes stayed the same. There is a floodplain on the property. That's the highest one here is this elevation, this orange colored line here coming through. And so the flood zone is down gradient towards the ocean side. So all structures are outside of that. I can hop through. There's the red dash line is our erosion control, which we're basically wrapping the whole site. We do have some construction staging. Let's see if I can get back to that. So we plan on using the existing tennis court in the beginning of the project for construction staging. As we move from what I call the north or rear of the site out to Atlantic Ave, we would then convert to using the auto court for some construction staging as it moves along. We are including some silt sacks in the existing catch basins that are on Atlantic Ave, and construction stabilization entrance at the driveway.
You were showing site lighting on the previous plan?
Oh, yes, I apologize. Yes. So we have small sconces lighting. It's very similar, the same design that was on the previously approved house. So all of this design is all the same as what was previously approved.
Got it.
So, and then, so in reality, it's sconces along the, following along the face of here and surrounding the auto court primarily. Two sconces at the entrance. We have small entrance retaining walls here at the driveway entrance. No lighting on the lawn tennis court area.
Can you speak to how much blasting is being done and how much lot clearing is being done?
So we are under the 70% lot clearing requirement. So the limit of work is what you see here, this red line.
Yeah.
So that's the limit of work. So we are, I believe it was approximately 60%. So we are under the 70% requirement. With regards to ledge, is some small exposed ledge up here in the driveway auto court area. As for any below grade, I don't have that. We don't have any numbers to estimate that at this point. There's been no soil investigation for that, but since the ledge is being removed in conjunction with the house and driveway, my understanding is that is an exempt activity because we are obtaining a building permit for that work. As well as we're going through conservation. So we did meet with conservation last week and we have a site visit with them out on the site later this week.
All right. Sandra, do we have a consultant here with us tonight? I
You
know
mean
Weston.
peer review?
205.
Yeah, peer review. Yeah.
We
do
don't
we
do
have-
peer review for large home review.
All right,
typically.
that's fine.
Correct.
I just wanted to I know Weston and Sampson's not going to be here tonight. All right, so other members of the planning board?
Well, I think that they still need to review the architecture package. I think the big point we had at our last meeting was that the height had changed from what was when it was originally submitted.
Yep.
And they needed to take a look at the height relative to the new definition.
All right, can you address that, Deb?
I will defer to Jamie for that. He worked on the architecturals. Just briefly, what you see here is a robust landscaping plan that Sean Papich's office had prepared for us. So that is in the package, and I will now stop sharing and let Jamie.
That looks great. That looks great.
Yep.
Very
And
thorough.
I'll let Jamie pick up from here.
Okay, Jamie Kelleher with Axiom Architects. Everybody seeing my screen now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm actually just gonna start with the revised renderings. Just to give you an idea what it looks like. So we were able to basically reconform the building and the roof, especially to take the additional 5 feet off of the building height. I think in general, it was a very positive adjustment from the exterior standpoint. We did it by doing a combination of lowering the first floor, taking some height off of each of the levels, and then redesigning the shape of the gambrel roof a bit to bring it down. And just to compare, that's the old view that we had from this basic angle, and here's the new one again. So it does have a pretty big impact. The other views from the driveway side now with the adjusted reduced height of the windows, things like that, just to bring the proportion down. And then we have this east view as well, that shows the pool area, which has also been redesigned. Just to touch on the pool for a second, this is being proposed as a pool that sort of has the endless pool look, where the water cascades over the wall that holds it in. That's kind of what we're trying to represent there. Quickly go through the plans now, which haven't really changed in terms of the floor plans. So we're still looking at the same first and second floor area of 5127 first floor, 5588 second floor, for a total finished proposed area of 10,715. We had a request for an attic plan at the last meeting, so we're kind of showing this just as an empty space for the moment. And the attic would have a floor area of around 3,000.
And it's great that you're putting it in, because if it wasn't shown, then you'd have to go back for another modification to the large home review or something like that. So you're owning your attic square footage.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
then,
keep going. Sorry.
nope, no problem. The roof essentially staying the same, and the elevations will now show how we adjusted the height. We have an average grade of 26 feet, 5-inch elevation. On this driveway side,
Determined by how many measurement points? Did you do it according to the new definition?
as far as I understand, yes, that's something that Deb had done.
Yes.
And, according to the new regs. So on this side, it's 29 feet to the midpoint on that driveway elevation. And then on
So
the
we
higher-
don't use the midpoint
yeah.
anymore, but that's
Oh,
not
okay.
35 feet. I think
Yep,
you just needed
the
to
roof,
change
the
the
tallest-
note.
sorry, yeah, the tallest part of the roof, we're at 34.11 3/4, just
It's right
Oh,
there.
got right there. It was a challenge, but
Well,
we
that's
did
too
get it.
close for comfort for me, frankly.
Well, if it's, as long as it's 1/4 of an inch less.
Yeah,
it's
but you
less.
see, this is it. We don't have peer review, so we have nobody to verify it for us. It's too
Well,
close for
somebody's
comfort.
gonna do an as-built site plan after construction, and that you
Yeah,
know, we
then-
could instruct the building inspector to require that as a part of the building permit.
And
And that
Al,
would be,
I mean, we could make it as a,
Clark, can
we could make it a
can you-
part of our
can you-
decision, a condition to approval.
can you be specific, Clark, when you're describing what was just asked of you? You're basically saying after the building is building, we're going to say something? Or are we
No.
gonna say that now?
No, I mean, it's under 35 feet according to this drawing.
By one
Under
inch,
35 feet conforms to zoning.
yes, but it is under 1 inch. And so we have agreed in the past that when we are this close to the edge, we require a third party assessment of the actual structure.
Well, no, it wouldn't be an assessment. It would be an as-built, an engineer stamps that it's
Yeah,
been
that you-
surveyed.
No,
That can be a
You're
condition.
relying on
That can
John
be a condition
Hallen's
of the
rec-
large home review approval.
Yeah, but you're then relying on John Hallen to make the determination.
No,
After it's built,
you're relying on the professional surveyor who puts his license at risk if he falsifies that information.
no, in the past, we have decided
Did you
that we
just say
would have
no?
a third party review in an instance where something.
Not for large home review. We're not going to do third-party review.
And that's
I
the
mean, there's
problem.
a civil engineering firm that's on board. They have surveyors. They can
That's the
certify
problem.
the height as an as-built.
All right, Adam, quickly, please.
Thank you. I just want to remind you that Mr. Hallen, in connection with the building permit, is going to determine compliance with zoning and the building code. So I think Mr. Brewer's comments are to the point. This will also be certified by the project engineers who are going to have to put their stamp on this and have professional liability and have liability if there's an error. Thank you.
Except that we have no ability to determine if an error has been made. That's the point that Amy is making, so.
Well, this is large home review. We're not confirming the completed.
I
construction.
understand that it's only large.
This
home
is
review, yeah.
an expose for the neighbors and a general check to see that that the applicant is
I understand that.
considered
That's-
as a
that's one of the
butter.
limitations. Yeah, no, that's one of the limitations of the large home review process. All right, anything else on that issue that we need to discuss? I'm just, again, trying to keep to our schedule as much as possible, so.
yep, I can continue. Let's see, so then, yeah, two other elevations, confirming basically the same. That one side is definitely the highest part, and the other elevations were a little bit lower than that, so. And then we have just a final sheet that we added with a little more information on what's being proposed for the pool. Dimensions and patio levels and things like that, so. That's, and then foundation, so that's keeping it brief. Any other questions? Be happy to answer.
All right, members of the board, anybody else have a question at this point?
I do.
Yep, go ahead.
In past circumstances, we have waited until the structure was built before we determined that it was out of compliance with the large house review. So I request that what we propose is that there be a third-party review to ensure that we are not going to be mistakenly determining the building being either too small or too large.
Did
And
we already talk about this? The submitted drawings say it's under 35 feet. These are done by professional engineers and architects.
Yes, I appreciate that, Clark, but we have had a conversation more than once about the fact that once a structure and a set of plans are put before us and it is described as being a certain height, that we would actually investigate to ensure that that was true. We've been through this numerous times.
Again, I think we'd make it a condition to
We are not going to
have
request.
the
somebody-
as-built conform to the height requirements. And as
But we
Adam
are not
Brodsky
going to-
points out, that's the bailiwick of the building inspector.
But we are not going to request this is not a back and forth. This is a statement of fact. We indicated that when we are as close as 1 inch between the large height review, that we would have a third party investigation because we've been through this before.
I wouldn't hold up a large home review for something that's not a requirement that we can't really, it's not in our zoning bylaw for large home review.
I think until Cohasset has a bylaw that says, like lots of other towns do, and I know they do, that you exceed the height you said you were going to build at,
Yeah.
that we say, take it down, and we can tell them to take it down and they have to. Until we have that, I'm not sure we have the grounds in our
we
large home review.
do. We do, Deidre. I mean, if they built this 2 feet taller than what they're saying, then they're at risk.
But
and
at risk at what,
nobody
Clark? I'm sorry,
notices it.
we have examples in town where the houses are standing.
And
right
then
now.
there's six under mass general laws, there's 6 years that they're at risk if they pull a permit. And as an example where that somebody didn't pull a permit, there's 10 years that goes by that the structure would be at risk.
Bless you.
Thank you,
Can
sir.
I just ask my colleague a question? How does this help us ensure that what we are expecting will happen if all that you're describing is after the fact? Help me understand how I am going to feel like I've done my job as a public servant if what I do is wait until something is built and then struggle through.
No, but the applicant doesn't want to put their certificate of occupancy at risk. I mean, they don't want to make a mistake so that they don't get to use their structure or has to tear off 2 feet of structure.
We have been through exactly the same situation.
No, it's not the same situation. Every situation is independent,
Exactly the same
separate, and
situation.
unique.
All right, stop. Let's not argue amongst ourselves too much here. Clark, Amy, what is the same situation? Large home review is a different process, so it's not like a special permit. And, you're pointing out, and I'm sitting here taking notes as I'm working on rewriting the bylaw because there's these gaps that come up constantly like this one. So, but, I don't know that in large home reviews, since I've been on the board, that we've been able to, again, what we can decide upon, and it's really just the residential site plan review is quite limited. And I don't know that we have the leeway, although when it's this close, I'm sitting here as suspect as anybody else. And I'm not saying anyone's intentionally going to put their license at risk, but, you put something on paper and then it gets built in the field. It's a different story, the contractor could be.
That's the risk. That's the risk that the applicant takes.
And then we have no one either in the before stage or the after stage to actually review and verify the numbers. We simply don't, and there's no process for it either.
Well, I mean, we have 4 criteria, right? And for the large home review, I mean, generally we say we want it to conform to zoning. That's if we notice something, but if there's a zoning issue, that might be something for the zoning board of appeals, or some other method. Not
Yeah, but right
large
now
home
there is
review.
now there is no zoning issue on its face to put before the
Nope.
zoning. So,
Exactly.
Adam, is your hand up again?
Briefly, Chair Callahan, I think you touched on my point. Just to remind the planning board in this context, you're not the permit granting authority. It's a recommendation and an advisory role. And so any concerns regarding future compliance would be for the building inspector. And as Mr. Brewer said, the building inspector has got the ability to enforce the zoning bylaw if there is a violation. This is simply not the function of the planning board in this context. And I don't believe you've got the ability to require third-party review because of that. Thank you.
You have a problem with a condition though that says that an as-built will be submitted to the building inspector. I think that goes with the building permit as well, but I think.
Yes,
that's-
I don't think that's objectionable because that
All
would
right.
typically be required.
Yeah, okay,
So our four
Alright.
criteria are scale of buildings, preservation of landscape, lighting, and circulation. Seems to
Right.
me that these that clearly have dealt with all of these, with the exception perhaps worthy of discussion of scale of buildings. But this neighborhood has a lot of big houses.
well, to the extent there is a neighborhood, I think the scale's out of whack, but there aren't a lot of houses nearby either, but the
I
ones
mean,
that
if
are.
you go
Yeah,
500 foot radius, there's still
Yeah.
a lot of big houses around here.
Yeah, that's true.
Is this an outlier? I don't know.
Kevin,
I mean, the garage for the house next door is probably almost the square footage.
yeah, no, you're right. Kevin, go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Some lighting was discussed with regard to entranceways, I think on the driveway and also in the entranceways to the home. It sounds like the pool and the area around the pool, the patio area, is a big feature of this home. Will there be lighting associated with that feature, and can you describe it?
Yes, and my understanding is it's very similar to what was previously proposed. So it's all sort of wall lighting sconces along the stairway and along the terrace that surrounds the pool. So as for
So
it would
when-
be, sorry, go ahead.
So sconces, can you describe those and the way they would face and whether there would be any anti-glare features on those? That would be helpful.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at the details again for them, and they do have shields on them. So they'd be downward directed, wouldn't be going upward, and they'd be facing into the patio terrace area.
Okay, great. Thank you for the additional detail. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Anybody else from the board?
Yeah, just one other comment, compared to what we passed, for the large home review before, I think this contextually is a lot more appropriate a solution. Not that it couldn't be perfected by the architectural team as they move towards a building permit. But I think far and away, it's, an improvement from, it was like a big New York or Connecticut firm that came in and had these very anti-contextual shapes and forms. So I applaud the team for coming up with something that has a better fit regionally, as well as for our town. No, I think the lighting plan, the landscape plan, and the off limits areas are laid out very clearly.
Anybody else from the board? All right, is there anyone from the public that wishes to be heard on this application? Do you have any hands up? I don't see any. Don't see any Q&As, so I will entertain a motion from the board.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the project with the condition that that the building inspector confirm the calculation and height is conforming to zoning.
With the receipt of an as-built plan.
That's fine, an amendment.
Okay. Anybody second that? Where is everybody? I'll second.
I will say that I am concerned about the fact that we're not talking about the granite removal that is going to be necessary for the structure to be built. Is this outside our purview?
Yes, it is under our.
The exclusion for,
I pulled it up, the, my old paper version of the bylaws, the old Article 11, so the exceptions under Article 11, 11.3, A3 where earth removal was necessarily excavated in connection with the lawful construction of a building, sewer system, other utilities, or a driveway. Blah, blah, blah. So, again, this is pointing out things to think about as we're redoing the bylaw, but that's how it was written, and the driveway and the building and the utilities are excluded. So the one piece of a ledge face is now going to be buried under that driveway area.
The real
If-
beautiful
if
ledge.
it had been
is-
somewhere-
is
if it had
in
been
connection
somewhere
with the
else-
water.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
if this was exposed ledge under the pool area, yes, then we could say no, or as we've done with some other projects, ask for currently submerged ledge to be exposed in compensation. But, you know, since it's the one exposed area is in the driveway, it's part of the exemption, so.
So there's a motion. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second it. All right, so any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll
Nope.
take a vote, alphabetical,
Clark Brewer, aye.
Tom Callahan, aye.
Amy Glassmeyer, nay.
Kevin Heine, aye.
Deirdre Hobson, I.
Okay. All right, thank you all.
Thanks. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Thank you very
you, Brad.
much.
And thank you
Have a good
for-
evening.
you
Good
too.
evening.
All right, next we will move on to a new public hearing. For a special permanent site plan review under the new bylaw for 15 Brook Street.
Tom, we
Cassandra,
can't hear you.
You can't hear me? Oh, I'm sorry. This is for a new public hearing for a special permit and site plan review under the village bylaw for 15 Brook Street. Cassandra, do you mind reading the public notice?
I can.
Need to put you on the spot.
Nope, that's okay. I just didn't have it pulled up, so let me just do that. Okay, pursuant to MGL Chapter 40A and Section 300-12, Section 300-4, Section 300-5, and Section 300-18 of the Cohasset zoning bylaws, the planning board will hold a virtual public hearing via Zoom, webinar ID 826-1553-6669, password 645-966 on Wednesday, November 15th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. on the application of James Norton Young Bedford LLC for a Village Business District special permit and site plan review approval. The subject properties are shown on Cohasset Assessor's Maps E5-27-022, otherwise known as 15 Brook Street. The application to raise the detached barn and replace it with a single-family dwelling with a footprint of approximately 410 square feet. A copy of the application and plans and accompanying documents are on file for viewing in the town clerk's office at Cohasset Town Hall, 41 Highland Avenue, Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. and Friday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Electronic versions of application materials can be obtained by visiting https://cohassetma.org/524/active PB applications. Any person interested or wishing to be heard on the application should attend the virtual meeting at the time designated. Signed, Thomas J. Callahan, Chair, Cohasset Planning Board.
Okay, thank you, Cassandra. Once again, we are going to try to stick to a strict half hour here. We will hear from the applicant, then we will hear from the board, and then we will hear from the public. Members of the public, you can either write a Q&A or you can raise your hand and you'll be promoted to the screen. So,
Tom, we have peer review on this, right?
do we have someone here tonight?
Correct, you do.
Okay.
Pat Brennan is here.
Okay,
I'll be pulling him forward. Brendan, if you need anybody else for your presentation, just let me know.
Okay, I don't think Jim Norton's on the call. If he is, you can promote him, but I'm not sure. Did Pat send a review out? Because I have not received anything.
I apologize. Pat did. I think in the shuffle of town meeting, it got lost and didn't get over to you.
Okay,
I can send it to you right now, though.
no, that's okay. I'll go forward.
Yeah,
with the
all right,
presentation.
then, so after the applicant's presentation, Patrick, we'll ask you just for your Cliff Notes version of your letter, and then obviously we're gonna need to continue this for a response and further discussion of it. All right, Brendan, go ahead.
Sure. For the record, Brendan Sullivan with Mineral Associates, professional resident engineer and land surveyor. I will pull up the screen, pull up the proposed plan. Where did it go? So this is 15 Brook Street. Where is? Hold on, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I'm having a problem with my screen sharing here. Let me close a few windows. Apologize for that.
No worries.
So, 15 Brook Street, if you remember, that's the old Charlie Humphreys building on Brook Street, office building in the main building in the front, and a existing barn in the back. This project has been in front of you back in 2019, 2020 for basically the same use, except then it was a proposed guest house we were proposing because a single-family home was not allowed in the village business district. So this is the existing conditions. Like I said, office building in the front, sewer main going through the properties. We do have a floodplain here, elevation 9. The entire barn is in the floodplain. We did get an extension of the order of conditions from conservation, extended for another 3 years. And we were in front of zoning, ZBA last night for work in the floodplain. There were no real substantial comments from either of those boards. So what we're proposing is basically the same as we proposed before. The rear yard setback is being increased from 5.6 feet to 10.2 feet. The massing is being reduced by about 15%. As I did send you a massing diagram similar to this one. Like I said, the rear yard setback existing over here on the left is 5.6 feet. The building is kind of skewed to the lot line. We're making the new building on the right-hand side more normal to the lot line in the rear, increasing the setback to 10.2. As I said, the volume within the setback is being reduced by about 15%. What's not shown on here is the facade. The facade is increasing by about 22%. And that's basically because we're raising the building, lifting it up, and also adding these dormers on the side of each of the gable ends. So that is the the volume diagram. So same as before, we are reducing the gravel driveway in the rear yard because of conservation issues. They had expanded the gravel driveway back here. No work on the site has been done at all. But we are taking up those gravel spaces, moving some of them up into the adjacent to the single family home. We do have some planting areas down there for mitigation up against the James Brook. The James Brook culvert runs between this property and the property next door, and down the lot line. It comes out the rear of the property. We're also proposing some trees for some screening along the rear property line and the northerly property line adjacent to the residential properties. We are connecting to the existing sewer main that runs through there, through the lot with the sewer connection. We're planning on getting water and telephone electric cable from the rear of the existing dwelling, the rear of the existing building. I'm sorry. I think that's about it. Questions or comments?
All right, let's first turn to Patrick, if we could.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
What about the architectural? Shouldn't we see the architectural plans
Oh,
and the
sure.
little building real quick? It's very
Yep.
small, but
Yep, so this is, if you can see these here, this is the basically the front elevation. They said the existing outline kind of runs this, you know, that this gable end, with the two dormers on either side.
What's the height?
The height is, the new height is approximately 22 feet, I believe,
To the peak?
to the ridge. Yep.
and the floor plan, what's the area of this? Is it 20 by 20 or times
Yes,
2 floors?
yes, essentially, yeah, 20 by 21, approximately 420 square feet in total. So the
Okay, a
first,
little over 800 square foot.
yes, yeah, probably actually a little bit less than that. I think we called
Yeah.
it 800 square feet, but the first floor, as you can see, is on the right-hand side here. We have a first floor, like a living area,
Yeah.
stairway, you know, bathroom, kitchen,
Right.
mudroom, bathroom area. And the second floor is you're losing some floor space because of the eaves and the
Sure.
dormers.
Sure.
But you know, bathroom upstairs, walk-in closet, second floor bedroom. So basically a one-bedroom dwelling.
Yeah, right. It's tiny.
Yeah.
As an accessory dwelling unit, though, it's about the size of an accessory dwelling unit. We have a 900 square foot maximum.
Got it. Okay.
I mean, there's some questions that occurred to me, but I'll want to hear from Patrick first before we get into other questions. If you're all set, Brendan, I'll move on to Patrick. And
Sure.
again, nobody's had the benefit of seeing your letter yet, Patrick. So if you want to just hit the highlights for us, go right ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I submitted a letter November 9th, that was last week. So on this project, they're looking for some zoning relief. It requires a special permit to have the detached single-family dwelling at the rear of the property. They're also looking for a special permit to allow work within the setback, the relief from the 15-foot setback, but they are making it less non-conforming than it is now, going from the 5.6 feet to the 10.2 feet. Getting into my comments, my first comment was the two proposed parking spaces they have in the gravel area. They don't have, in your parking diagram, you show a 24-foot wide aisle behind parking spaces for nose in 90-degree spaces, and they don't have that. They have about 14 feet behind those two spaces. When they came with this project in 2019, the parking space was actually on, as you're looking at the plan now, above the proposed building. It was one space there, and then the backup area was, you know, coming back into where the two proposed spaces are now. So that's just, you know, one of the comments. My second comment is, if you can leave that up, Brendan, is both the architectural plans that they submitted are the same ones from 2019. They have not been updated because, as you can see from the site plan, they have two landings. One, as you're looking at the plan, on the left side of the building, and one above the building. So that's the front and the side. Previously, they had a landing in the rear, which would have been in the rear setback. And that's still shown as a door on the architectural plans in that location. So they just need to change the architectural plans to show the door moving from one wall to the other to match the landings on the exterior. I went through a number of the required findings. There's nothing really major in there. One of the things that I would note is, because I did review the same project for the board in 2019, I was familiar with it. At the time, we asked for them to do a drainage analysis because the gravel that was out there had looked to have been placed there, you know, fairly recently, back in 2019, within a few years, based on historic aerial photographs. At the time, Brendan did do a drainage analysis and showed that by reducing the gravel to what he's proposing here, there's no increase in runoff from the site. And by making the gravel area grass and that mitigation planting area that he pointed out that conservation is requiring along James Brook, both of those improve water quality coming off that gravel area and going toward James Brook. Let's see, they are providing the screening, as Brendan had mentioned, with the juniper trees, 5 on each the north and east sidelines. The only thing, one of your findings is how refuse would be handled. So I just made a comment that they should, you know, explain or describe how the refuse would be handled for solid waste. And that's pretty much it. The major comments were basically updating the architectural plan and how to treat those parking spaces. If, you know, since it's a single family dwelling, you know, do you need the 24-foot backup area or not? And I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
All right, thank you, Patrick. All right, we'll turn to the board. Amy, I see your hand up, so you'll go first.
I'm sorry, I think I incorrectly identified myself.
Okay. Then I'll go first. A couple of things. First, I'll just put the questions and comments together. The first thing is, where's the parking for the office use? Number one. Second, it's been brought to my attention that while the barn structure is less non-conforming, it's still non-conforming and likely needs a permit from the zoning board under Article 8. And then the other thing is, the barn is detached, and the rest of the board can help me with this, but under 18.1B1, building is located behind the.
Can you face your mouth to the mic?
I am facing it. I'm also trying to read the damn bylaw.
Understood, but you break up when you move it away.
We have separate buildings here, and most, you know, the bylaw talks about a residential unit can be on the ground floor as long as it's behind the commercial unit that faces the street. But in most of the cases that I've seen in the village since I've been on the board, they've all been connected. These are two separate buildings, and it's been pointed out to me that we generally don't allow that under the bylaw, and that's something that also needs zoning board relief. It depends on your interpretation of 18.1B1 about whether that section allows for that the residential structure that's on the ground floor is completely detached from the commercial structure. So I just raised those issues, but the parking, clearly the zoning board, because it's still a non-conformity under Article 8, and then that issue. Anybody want to take it, knock yourself out?
Hey, I was just looking at.
Brendan, is there a response to it? Like, where is the parking for the commercial unit?
Sure. So the parking for the commercial, the building is within 500 feet of the downtown parking lot. So we don't need parking for that. That's
it's a long distance. It's not.
It's 500 feet from the front door of that building to the town parking lot.
Exactly.
Anything less than 500 feet the building does not need parking for the parking bylaw. So as far as the setbacks go, I believe you are the special permit granting authority in the village business district. That's why we're in front of you, and they were explicit. The zoning was last night that they are only looking at work in the floodplain. They're not working at nonconformities to the structure. So I believe that the planning board is the special permit granting authority in the village business district. And as far as the residential attached to the structure, a single family, that's what changed in the zoning bylaw, this 2020 or 21, was that a single family home is now an allowed use in the village business district. It doesn't say it has to be attached, doesn't say it has to be within the building. Single family home is an allowed use through a special permit, through the special permit granting authority, which is the planning board. So that's why we're here. That's my understanding of it.
Carolyn, do we supersede the zoning board on an Article 8 issue, a non-conforming issue under the village bylaw? Not super clear to me. But
Sorry, Tom, what's the non-conforming issue?
the setback of the barn structure.
Well, but it's over 10 feet. I mean, the village says 10 feet side for a village. VB is 10 and it could be less for side.
No, we're talking about a rear yard setback, which is 15 feet. So we are non-conforming.
And
It's
and
still-
we're allowed to provide relief to that rear or side
That's-
setback.
That's my question, is does Article 18 put all of that authority over Article 8 under our purview? That's all I'm
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah, under the
Let
area
Carolyn
regulation.
let Carolyn answer that question, please.
I don't have an answer to you yet, Mr. Chairman. I am flipping through
Okay.
the same pages of the bylaw as well.
Yeah.
Because ordinarily, you're correct that if we are altering a non-conforming structure, that typically requires approval from the Zoning Board of Appeals. But I will continue to look through the bylaw.
It's note 15 in the table
In
of
use table?
dimensional. Yeah, that's the double asterisk, refers to note 15 for structures in the VB district, required front yard and rear lot. Well, I'll let you read it since you're the attorney.
Well,
You
let
get
me-
$3.
Let me ask you that, the
we're
zoning
allowed-
board, Brendan, the zoning board didn't raise that issue last night?
But it's our issue. These
I just-
setback issues are for the planning board.
Clark, let me ask the question and let him answer the question. If he was in front of the zoning board last night, it was a zoning board member that brought up the issue to me. So
But
I like,
they were explicit last night, that they were just there for work in the floodplain. And
okay,
I did go over to them about the nonconformities and this and that, but Mr. Chittick had to recuse himself because of the architect on the project. And I'm sorry, Mr. Morris presided, and he was explicit in saying that we were only here with regard to work in the floodplain.
okay. That answers that.
Yeah,
So, I mean, you can ask him, that's,
No, that's
okay, but-
fine. That's
I
fine.
listened in on some of that too.
And Mr. Chairman, just to reiterate that, Clark was correct, starting to read note 15, that a reduction of the front yard or rear yard can be authorized by a grant of a special permit from the special permit granting authority.
All right, good catch. Thank you. The parking though still disturbs me again, like the previous application with the height being within an inch of the limit, here, if it's 500 feet and you're 500 feet,
I'm sorry, can I also just ask, this may not be even related, but my understanding is that the part of the building, this front structure on the street, there are units upstairs. They may not being used right now, but those were apartments. If those were to be rented again, where would those people park?
I believe the front office space, the front building is all office space as far as I know. I mean, I could ask the owner. I can get more information about that. But once again, they're within 500 feet of the town parking lot.
Yeah, I understand. We just have no parking in town, but okay.
Yeah, do you know what the anybody can throw this, if we were looking at the office use, what the requirement would be for parking?
150 per 1,000 square feet, possibly one space per 150 square feet. Is that
So
it,
what
Clark?
would-
Well, I got my zoning bylaw out. I just thought there's lots smarter people who can flip through the pages.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to do here too, so. I mean, if the upstairs, that's a good question, Deirdre, because I always thought it was apartments in the past. I've been in that building for its office use. I didn't know anybody used the upstairs as office space, and it could be converted into rental space, I assume, fairly easily. And then we getting into a more parking problem with an additional residence as well as an office use. Let's see,
But if
it?
there was a change, then we would review the existing and proposed parking relative to a changed use or changed square footage.
Yep.
My only other question was about lighting. I don't know if it's relevant right now, but I know that probably the commercial's front, the office space will be what's there now, but just what kind of lighting would be on the residential structure.
Probably just what we show on the architecturals if we do any. I don't see, I don't see any. I would just assume maybe some sort of a sconce over the doorway opening. Probably not much more than that would be my assumption, but we can, I can double check on that as well. The lighting.
Thank you, Brendan. That would be great.
As far as the parking, so really, so before Mr. Norton bought this, there was really just like 3 parking spaces up in this area here.
Yeah.
And the rest of this was lawn area. He put these 6 additional parking spaces down here kind of on his own merit, and probably shouldn't have because it was with his proximity to the James Brook. So that's why conservation is making him remove those. And what I'll probably do is get rid of these 2 spaces and put the 1 space back adjacent to the single family home, so that as Mr. Brennan said, we can back out of here and have the 24-foot sweep and then pull out as well. When in reality, probably these spaces over here will be utilized as well as parking spaces. So minus the 6 spaces that were, you know, more or less illegally put down here, we're actually increasing the parking spaces by a space.
Yeah, I'm looking at the parking regs. You need 1 space per residential unit. So you would be covered with these 2 if the upstairs of the existing building was developed as an apartment. But it still leaves the office space, and there's no on-street parking there. And, you know, you're at the max of the 500 feet. I'm a little concerned about, you know, whoever's in the office is going to need to park. They might have support staff. They're going to need to park. And then you have the resident in the back and a possible resident upstairs. So, you know, Clark's correct that we could have a future modification of this, but I would think it would be better to plan for more parking on the site now than wait till later and try to jury rig it in there after the fact. But that's my thought of it.
I would concur with that, Tom. I think that's a reasonable request of the applicant, and I think I would strongly encourage the applicant to consider that. I don't have any other comments.
And Patrick Brennan, if you could verify the 500-foot limit, please. I'd appreciate if you do that. All right, anybody else from the board?
Yeah. So in the table of uses, attachment 1, my version is from 2018. Do we have a newer version of that? Because
I passed one the other night.
because of for residential, the detached 1-family dwelling in the village is SP, not SPP. Did we get an updated table? And I remember this coming up before. An SP would be a zoning board.
Zoning.
Not an SPP is planning board. But Patrick, do you have an answer for me?
Yeah, the table of use regulations that I'm looking at is May 2021 and SPP for the visit.
Yeah.
Okay, then it did get fixed subsequently. Good for me
Yeah.
for having an outdated paper copy. Paper, it's always out of date as soon as you print it.
All right. Anything else, Clark?
Well, that it's a de minimis project that we have the authority for the side and rear setbacks, even though the side is conforming. And I think the 10.2 for the rear seems perfectly adequate. In that context, there's really nothing back there. And it's under the 25-foot height for an accessory structure, which in most residential zones could probably be 10 feet away. So I mean, I really think it's a de minimis kind of almost a non-existent, an imperceptible change to this context neighborhood between a residential district and the village business district. So I don't have any specific comments, but I will say regarding the parking, if it is possible to eke out a few dedicated parking spots on site, I think that would benefit the owner and whoever lives in this, you call it a single family building, I call it accessory dwelling, whatever it is, small. It would almost be hard to fit two people in that unit. They'd have to really get along well.
All
Yeah,
right, are there any
No other
members,
comments?
are there
Yeah.
any members of the public?
Oh.
All right, well, go ahead,
Uh,
Deirdre.
And my only request would be that I agree with Clark's understanding of the project, but I would just to stay with protocol, I would like to see the updated architectural plans showing the egress and ingresses that are not there and the lighting on it. That's all I would request. And then I agree on the parking piece if we can do that, but that was it.
I'll see what I can do with the parking. I mean, with conservation, they're really restricting us there, what we can and cannot do back there. I mean, mainly what we cannot do back there. So we're kind of limited on space. But I'll see what I can come up with and get creative.
Are any members of the public that wish to be heard on this project? See none? All right, so we're gonna need to continue this. We need the formal production of Mr. Brennan's analysis, a response. And I guess we're looking at trying to squeeze a couple of more parking spaces in that. So Cassandra, can we continue this?
So your next two meetings are December 6th and December 20th. December 6th, you have a large home review and a special permit site plan review currently on the agenda. On the 20th, you don't have anything at this time.
If we could go to the 20th, I'd be happy with that. If that makes sense.
That's very, I appreciate you doing it then, because I can anticipate some other things gonna be on the 6th as well, so.
Motion to continue to the 20th?
I'm sorry, Clark, just quickly, that will include an updated architectural plan, correct?
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, so the motion is to continue this to December 20th at 6:30. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Clark
Alphabetical.
Brewer, aye.
Tom Callahan, aye. Amy, you muted. All right, Kevin, go ahead.
Kevin Heine, aye.
Deirdre Hobson, aye.
Okay. Thank you, Brendan. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank
We'll
you.
see
thank you. How far in advance do you need that material? A week or 2 weeks? A week?
A
Well,
week is typical.
It's relatively simple stuff to look at. I mean, a week should be adequate. What's
A
the
day?
technical amount, Cassandra?
A week.
Yeah.
Okay, week,
A
great,
week by noon, technically.
sure, thank you,
12:05. Forget it.
thank
All
you.
right. Thank you all. All right. Looking ahead, we seem to be just 7 minutes off, which is good since we started a couple of minutes later. So the next is a new public hearing, also under the village bylaw, special permanent site plan review for 2 Pleasant Street. Cassandra, if you don't mind, reading the public notice.
Make sure I unmute myself before I start talking.
Oh, okay.
Pursuant to MGL Chapter 40A and Section 300-12 of the Cohasset zoning bylaws, the planning board will hold a virtual public hearing via Zoom, webinar ID 826-1553-6669, password 645966 on Wednesday, November 15th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. on the application of Village Development Partners LLC for a Village Business District Special Permit and Site Plan Review modification. The subject properties are shown on Cohasset Assessor's Map E5-39-001, otherwise known as 2 Pleasant Street. The application seeks to modify the existing 2012 permit to allow the demolition of the existing commercial building at 2 Pleasant Street and the construction of a mixed-use building in its place with a total residential gross floor area of 2,800 square feet. A copy of the application and plans and accompanying documents are on file for viewing in the town clerk's office at Cohasset Town Hall, 41 Highland Avenue, Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. and Friday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Electronic versions of application material can be obtained by visiting cohassetma.org/524/active PB applications. Any person interested or wishing to be heard on the application should attend the virtual meeting at the time designated. Signed, Thomas J. Callahan, Chair, Cohasset Planning Board.
Thank you, Cassandra. All right, let's promote whoever needs to be promoted. Again, we will proceed with applicant presentation. We then our consultant, if we have one here tonight, and then board members and members of the public. Again, I want to try to keep us to a 30-minute time frame. We are not likely to make a decision on this tonight, but given our agenda tonight, we have no choice. So,
So just so you know, Tom, your peer review for this application is also Pat.
Sure, you had nothing else to do tonight, right? All right, so from the applicant, who is going to speak?
My name's Mike Roberts. I'd like to promote Jamie Kelleher and Austin Chartier from McKenzie Engineering to be able to speak. There's Austin from McKenzie Engineering, and Jamie should be on.
All right, then whichever of those two, you have the floor.
So this is an application to modify the existing permit at 2 Pleasant Street. It's asking for permission to take down the existing building at 2 Pleasant Street and replace it, as Cassandra said, with a new mixed-use building. Just some background for it. This was presented just before COVID, and it was withdrawn. We've since met with homeowners and the HOA Association, and they may be speaking on our behalf today, but we've worked out an agreement whereby they are in support of this particular project. On the details. Is that all right? Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd like to start with.
Yes, can everybody hear?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'd like to start with Jamie presenting the architectural plans, and then Jamie, if you'd segue to Austin to present the engineering plans and the changes we made based on the peer review.
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Keller, go ahead briefly, as brief as you can be.
Brief as I can be. Okay. So, okay, it looks like you got that on there. So first sheet is just elevations showing what the building look like. Front elevation here. It's a very simple design with a kind of wraparound front porch. This is a commercial space on the first level that will have parking right out in front, which is right off the road. The porch wraps around the back to the entrance to the residential units, which we have 2 proposed. We did make a adjustment. This originally was really close on the new height requirement, so we've proposed to take 1 foot off of the height of the building to put the peak of the roof at 34 from the first floor level, which we feel will be very close to the ground level. We have an almost flat site, and this will be fully accessible. So first floor will be right at sidewalk level on the building all the way around. The green area shows the proposed commercial space, 780 square feet. with, an accessible, single accessible restroom as required, 2 exits. We have a rear residential unit shown in that peach orange color, which would be a 2-level with 1385 square feet. Then we have a second floor plus attic level residential unit proposed that would be accessed through the stair. That one comes in at 1495 square feet. We do have some renderings that were provided by landscape architect.
Can you go back a second?
Sure.
What were the measurements? What were the measurements of the 2 residential units?
They're 1385 square feet for the back one and 1495 for the upstairs unit.
All right, well, in the application, that was over 1,500 square feet. What magic has been done here? Did you just change the number to make it comply? Or?
I'm not sure what that application was referencing. This plan was actually done, and I believe it was submitted in the first hearing. This has always been the square footage of that unit, taken when we represent areas that are below 7 feet with this hatch. That's how the definition requires that we take the gross floor area. So that was some sort of a glitch or an oversight on that. So we will be happy to provide any other information we need to show that that's what the square foot is for that unit. And there's a landscape plan now that we have that will be shown by Austin. And these are just some of the renderings, just depicting the building from various angles around the site. And that's about it for my portion of the presentation. So I'm going to stop share and let Austin pull up the site plan.
Thank you.
So I'm Austin Chartier with McKenzie Engineering Group, for the record. We prepared these site engineering plans. So, essentially this is an association. The plans, as Michael mentioned, they go back to this entire site development, but we're kind of focused just on the demolition of the existing structure out there and the construction of this new commercial or mixed use building. Today, just quickly on the entrance here. So today there's a MBTA crossing at the top of your screen here. And there's some existing concrete sidewalks that are there. And then once you get past that, it's pretty much just a wide open curb cut out there. So vehicles about 4 or 5 can pull face in, and they actually back out onto Pleasant Street today. So it is a small site, but as part of our design, we really wanted to get rid of that. So we're providing 2 parking spaces for the commercial space and giving them a turnaround area on site, so they're not backing out onto Pleasant Street. And so that we're basically reducing that curb cut there from 50 feet down to about 28 feet, the actual entrance to the site. As Jamie mentioned, it is a very flat site out here. I think the existing grade around the building we calculated to about 11.3, the existing grade before construction. So we're putting our slab a few inches above that in order to make it accessible from the parking spaces and all around the building. It'll be a slab on grade building, so it'll be, minimal excavation out here. In general, the changes we made as part of the peer review comment, where we added an additional stone monument out here. Per the zoning bylaws, you need to have 3 on your property. So we only had 2 before that were located in the rear of the site. So we're proposing a new stone bound up front here. These are the monuments that exist out here. and this is kind of the site as a whole. We did do a comprehensive stormwater report for the entire site. And we did incorporate the new changes with this building into that. And essentially as part of that, to make the site compliant with Mass DEP stormwater management standards and Cohasset stormwater management standards, we're proposing a Caltech system adjacent to the building. It's kind of going to be right up against the building and the porch area here. But you know, the building's going to be slab on grade, so there's no concern with the elevation of that stormwater system next to the building. And in general, the existing utilities out here for the existing building are going to be retained, except we are proposing a new water connection for fire suppression as part, just to meet new building codes and for the commercial space out here. That's pretty much it from my end. I'll try to keep it brief, but I'm happy to answer any questions. I know there's kind of a lot going on this plan, but you know, this is the demolition of the existing building and construction of this new building. So
Where's your parking for this site?
So these are the two spaces here up front. So obviously this is the Village Business District, so the residential units are not required to have a space. I believe that's what it is.
Yeah,
So
there are two parking spaces in the rear of the building for their residents. It's parking space in the 6 spaces that are in the rear of the building. 2 of those are designated for the residents of this building on the residential side. So there's 4 spaces altogether.
So yeah, you got your 2 spaces out here. The green line I just drew, that's the actual parcel of land. So there's already unit 2, unit 4, and unit 6 are on this property. And I think, yeah, the 2 spaces of he's referring to are out back here. That it will be for the residential, and then there's 2 spaces here for the commercial.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else?
Austin, Jamie, you have anything else?
Nope.
No?
Yeah, and by the way, I'm just looking at the parking requirements, and the 500 feet limit applies to the commercial uses. Or not, commercial parking is not required because of the village parking lot. The apartments would need one space per unit on site, so.
Yeah, I might have misspoke there.
No, that's all right, that's all right, but you're providing, so that's fine. All right, if there's nothing else, I'll go to our consultant, Brandon. Want to just.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did review again, this is a project that I reviewed for the board back in 2020. Essentially what was submitted and I reviewed was what was pretty much submitted back in 2020. So my comments, based on the presentation, it looks like they've made some changes to address my comments, or at least a couple of them. Because my first comment was in relation to the size of one of the residential units. It was 1,530 square feet, and now they're saying that one's been reduced to 1,495, so it's below that 1,500 square feet. And again, the architectural plan that I was reviewing was dated February of 2020, so that's the one that I reviewed the first time around as well. And that's the one that was submitted. And in the narrative, it did say the 1,530, so they've made that change since the submission. The other comment that they've addressed that Austin pointed out was the 2 permanent serving monuments on the property. They did show 2 on the previous plan, but one of them was not actually on the property, so they did add a second one to the property. And then the other comment was the height of the building. The way that the plans that were submitted, as Austin mentioned, 11.5 is roughly 11 to 11.5 is roughly the existing grade around the building, 10 feet out from the building, where you're supposed to measure it. And basically the new height, the definition is the lower of the pre-construction grade or the finished grade to the highest point of the building roof. So as I mentioned, the existing grade around the building is 11 to 11.5. They had called out a top of foundation at elevation 13. So, a 1.5 to 2 feet above that, and then a 35-foot high building. So they were looking at about 38 feet in total height. So, now they're saying that it's a slab on grade. So, and the building height from that first floor is 34 feet. So, I think we really need to see what the revised site plan shows for, or even the architecturals for the, that first floor elevation. So 11.8. Okay, so 11.8.
Yeah, we had,
yeah.
Sorry, real quick. So we had done this, 10 feet off the existing building, existing grade out here, and it came out to 11.3. So as you mentioned, 11 to 11.5 was kind of the, roughly, but so we did that calculation and it was 11.3. So we're proposing the slab about, half a foot above that, which is pretty typical for something like this, where we're really trying to have a minimal impact out here. We want it to stay level. So this will just come up very slightly out there. And so we did our measurements using that 11.3 and this new 11.8 for the first floor slab.
Right, so the measurement is going to be from 11.3, however, and so where does that lead us?
So 11.3, I believe that these should, so that gives us a half a foot over this 11.8 on the renderings, which I can pull up. So I have these on my plan. I can show them after this. So you have your 34 feet from 11.8. And then on my plan, I have a table here. Sorry, that's the old plan. I have a table here that's updated using the 11.3 here. So I just peak height 45.8, so your building height is 30 feet to that midpoint.
Forget the
This was an
midpoint.
old table, so I should
Yes.
clarify that.
Yeah, you're gonna need to fix that and make sure it's within 35 feet of that 11.3 measurements.
Right, yep.
And those numbers you're showing us right now don't show that. So.
Right, I can clarify that table.
Okay. All right. Patrick, did you submit written comments to the applicant?
I did submit. I submitted them to Cassandra. October 30th was the date. I can forward them if the applicant hasn't received them. I can forward them to Austin.
Yes,
I did forward them to the applicant.
Yeah, we got those comments and we sent in a response.
And based on what Austin was just saying, it appears, I'd have to double check the plan, but it appears that the height of the building from the 11.3 would now be 34.5 feet based on the plans that they just showed tonight.
Correct, yep.
Which again is getting close for comfort. And then, again, the application said 1,530 something square feet for that one unit, and now all of a sudden it's under. So Patrick, if you could verify all that, I'd appreciate it. And, ask Mackenzie Engineering whatever it is you need from them.
Yep, will do.
That. All right, if you're all set, Patrick, I will note there's a question from a member of the audience, Christopher Plex. Just going back to the parking spaces, which is why I'll take this right now. The two existing spaces used by residents of the condos for guests. I think that's a concern that, those spaces have been there for a while and probably there's a pattern of how they're used. They're going to have to be clearly designated. If this is permitted, they're going to have to be clearly designated for the use of these new units. Because I think as a practical matter, you're going to find that the two spaces up in the front on Pleasant Street are going to be used for the commercial use.
Yes, yeah. The history of it is that as the developer, we've voluntarily allowed occupants to use the spaces for guests. It turns out that there were a number of spaces. I think there's only one deeded space there of the 6. And essentially, we designated as the developers extra spaces. Each of the units has one deeded space per village bylaw. When we developed the property, we decided it would be better to have 2 spaces. So we were able to get everybody 2 spaces by assigning spaces in the 6 as second spaces for everybody except for unit 4, which has both of its spaces there. So there's only one, as I said, there's only one deeded. Part of our agreement with the condo association is to deed the spaces over to the individual unit owners. That still leaves the 2 spots that we're that are going to be used for these units as spaces that are going to be deeded to Pleasant Street.
If you've made some agreement with the association, you know, I think we should see that, if you don't mind.
Not a problem.
All right, members of the board, who'd like to go first?
Yeah, just a couple quick comments. This is a modification to an existing approval. How far back does that approval go?
2012.
Seems like yesterday, but it was 11 years ago.
Well, what happened was there was an original approval before we got involved.
Right.
And then that project went south. We took
The
over
Rhode
the
Island
project.
guys, right? The Rhode Island guys.
Yes, yeah. So we kind of rescued the project and went through it, the whole process. I think in 2016 we got involved in 2016. So and then it got built, and as I said, we weren't involved in the original permit.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, it seems like yesterday, but it really wasn't. So I noticed from the architectural plans you have a single means of egress from each unit. That looks like a single means of, which as an architect, I'd have to assume that you're sprinklering this building. Sprinklering makes some changes. It gives you some flexibility and people save on insurance, stuff like that. Is it sprinklered or isn't it?
Jamie?
I didn't know which way we're going with that. We have
Yeah.
adequate egress windows for
Well,
all the bedrooms.
Yeah. No, the thing becomes an issue in terms of planning, and it's happened on several projects recently, that when you get close to a property line, you have fire ratings and then limitations on window openings. And on the north side where you're at the property line, I think 0.2 feet from the property line, presumably you need to get a construction easement from the MBTA, from their of their access driveway to build that, because you'd have to over excavate a little bit. That should be easy enough. You just need a lawyer for that. And maybe somebody who knows someone at the T. But where it's an issue for, I think, the special permit in the village is that the building code doesn't allow window openings that close to the property line. In some cases where your fire separation distance on the front is the middle of the street. In this case, this is a property line. So I think you're going to have to look into that aspect of the code. It's I'm not going to give you the reference. That's your job. To find out. It looks like you need at least a 1 hour rating, depending on whether you're sprinklered, and you're too close to the property line to have any windows on that northeast facing elevation, unless you can find some kind of exception on your fire separation distance that this MBTA access driveway operates like a street. But again, that's your Easter egg hunt. I'm sure we'll continue the hearing and you can come back with some more information that will help us make a decision. you also have that little trellisy thing that extends over the property line. I know in the building code, it allows shop owners with zero setback to have something like an awning that extends in over the sidewalk, over the public way. And it's like a special public works commissioner that has to approve that. Although it may have changed in the newer versions of the building code. So I'd ask you to take a look at that as well. In terms of the architecture, the architectural design, I think it fits. I would certainly recommend that you have that close to the train station, that you have triple pane, 1/4-inch glass windows, and some extra sound attenuation in the overall construction. Hey, sweetie, I'm in a meeting right now.
All right,
So those are all the comments I have right now. I think that's probably enough for the applicant to follow up on.
okay. Thank you. Anybody else from the board? All right. And the
Comment.
public, oh, I'm sorry.
No,
that you?
there's no comment.
Tom, let me ask, was there lighting detail on the plans that were put forth here? I didn't hear any reference to them.
That we're not, we did not do that.
All right.
We'll do that.
Yeah,
Well,
that'll be needed. That'll be needed.
What
for
we
that.
would be doing is consistent with the lighting that was on the other buildings. That's one of the agreements we have with the homeowners association. So we will specify the lighting in greater detail at our next meeting.
Okay. Yes, and again, then that agreement as well before the next meeting.
Will
So
do.
from the public, we have 3 comments from a Zoom user who I assume has then identified himself as Barbara Canny. First one is 2 spots for commercial use. These will be taken up by the tenants of the commercial property, 2 spots for residents. So under the village zoning, we require 1 spot per residents. And for the commercial spaces, as long as you're within 500, is it feet or yards? I think it's feet of the public parking lot, you do not have to provide spaces. I think just where they're located, though, as a practical matter, the 2 that are on Pleasant Street are going to be used by the commercial property, the commercial use. Then the next comment is with traffic stop for train in the new city hall, how are they going to get out of those 2 spaces? Already there's more parking in James Lane and Pleasant Street. Well, the train holds up everything. I don't know that that's a planning thing that, anything about a decision that we can deal with, but if anybody else has any comments on that, feel free. Is there anybody else from the public that wishes to be heard at this time? We will be continuing this. So,
Hey, Tom, there's one more thing that I got distracted by my daughter. I apologize.
Yeah,
for
go
that.
ahead, go ahead.
And that is, if this, when this was approved 11 years ago, we didn't have the village in the inclusionary zoning participation. But if on this particular part of the site, there's going to be 5 residential units, shouldn't one of them be designated affordable?
On this part of the site, there's only 2 residential units.
Yeah, but you're modifying an existing.
Well, the property
permit.
line, if you've got a site that's inside the green, you have 3 existing units and you're adding 2 residential units,
Yeah.
which is 5, which is our minimum threshold for
I don't know, is
for
Carolyn,
everywhere in the village and everywhere else.
is Carolyn still out there? I can't see on my view.
She is.
here. Yeah,
is.
Carolyn, if you could just, before the next meeting as well, give us an opinion, please, if the inclusionary zoning bylaw needs to be applied to this project as it's proposed for modification. And then we'll make that determination. I'm also seeing from the public, Mr. Plex would like to be promoted, and Mr. Scone, who's one of the HOA trustees, would like to be promoted. So if you could handle that, Cassandra, we'll bring them on. In the meantime, anything else from members of the board? The only other question I had is I thought someone had told me, because I wasn't on the planning board at the time, but didn't the existing building that used to be the ice cream stand, didn't it have to be preserved?
No,
No? Okay.
no, I mean, we talked a lot about the commercial component of this particular project. And we
Yeah.
always expected there to be a more significant commercial mixed use presence than what we've had over the last
Okay.
decade,
All right.
which is none.
All right.
But this creates you know, an obvious dedicated commercial component, which I think is good
All
overall.
right. Amy, I see that your hand is up, but let's see, well, hold on. Let's first deal with the two abutters or the citizens here. So why don't we start with Mr. Fiascone from the Homeowners Association? If he's out there. Whoever.
Hello.
The
Good
screen
evening.
sharing can stop whoever's doing it, so.
Hello, good evening, and thank you for hearing me. I'm John Fiascone. I am one of the trustees. And I have two comments. The first is that the homeowners have long understood that eventually the two parking spaces that were shown on screen tonight would go to residents of the new property that would be built. So there will be no problems with those parking spaces. The second thing is that the homeowners have met and discussed these plans several times and at some length, and we are strongly in favor of proceeding with the project. It will make the whole condominium association look better and be more unified visually and architecturally. So we are in favor of it. And those are the two things I had planned to say.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Mr. Plex, you out there?
I am. So I'll do my best to be brief,
Name,
but I also want to.
Name and address officially, please.
I apologize. Chris Plex, 17 Pleasant Street.
Okay.
So first, with regard to Mr. Fiascone's comment, I certainly understand where the Homeowners Association is coming from, but I would suggest that part of that is coming from where we are today, which is a dilapidated building in that space, which is not what was originally permitted when those condos were permitted. So there were a variety of commitments made by the developer with that first permit, one of which was to develop that commercial building, permeable paving throughout the development, finishing the top floors. So there were a number of things that were promised and not followed through on that I think should be factored through here, especially since we're talking about a number of things here that are at the limits of what is normally allowed. So when we think about the building heights, the square footage, those all seem to be moving pretty loosely. And then you throw in the parking, the distance from the edge of the lot. Trusting a developer who's got a history of bending the rules is a bad choice. So the planning board does have the authority to deny applications for a wide variety of reasons, among them the fit of a proposed building within its neighborhood. And this clearly doesn't fit. It's a 35-foot wall between the village and the neighborhood. The neighborhood residents have been extremely clear in application after application at 2 Pleasant, and I encourage the planning board to hear that for what it is. It's an expert opinion from people who live here every day on what fits and what doesn't. This is one more oversized, ill-fitting proposal that ignores the previous planning board guidance, maximizes profitable floor space at the expense of the town, and minimizes parking. Taking those 2 spaces away is a joke. It's a bait and switch for the people who live there today. And it's not an addition, so that is insufficient. So I know we're not voting tonight, but I encourage the planning board to deny this application in its current form.
Thank you, Chris. And I encourage you, and the same for Mr. Fiascone, if you'd like to submit your comments also in writing before the next meeting, so that we have a written record of it, that would be appreciated. You're not obligated to do that, but it would be appreciated. All right, anybody else from the public? We don't have any other hands up. All right, so then Amy.
It
go
does
ahead.
look like Barbara Canny has her hand raised.
Oh, okay. Barbara, do you wish to be promoted? We can promote you and you can see your pretty face and have you speak to us. Because I don't see a Q&A from her. Whoever's sharing the screen, could you discontinue that just so it's easier? Okay, you all set then, Barbara? Okay.
She's coming up. It took her a
oh,
minute.
okay.
She's coming up.
All right, no, that's fine. I didn't. Yeah. And I mean, one of the things is, you know, we have to look at the conditions of the original permit. This is a modification, but separate from that, if aspects of the original permit have not been complied with, and I know it was a different developer in 2012, but you know, unfortunately, the current owners take that on. So we do need to review that everything is up to snuff with the permit over the years. All right, Barbara, or is that who?
My apologies. There were two Zoom users. I assumed the one asking was Barbara Canny. It was not.
It looks like it's Mr. Grady.
It is.
Well, have your say. Identify, name and address, please.
Paul Grady, 2 Cushing Road. And I would second Mr. Pleck's comments that this board, there's careful scrutiny on this project. We've seen what happened with the other units going up, where they were stopped by the building inspector and then allowed to proceed when they weren't supposed to be a 3rd floor. It's a different set of plans, but they look very similar to me. And as far as the parking, I understand that they were supposed to use permeable pavers. That was never done. That area flooded. I know there was some sewer corrections, but flooded and still does. The permeable paver was never used, and I'm concerned more about the setbacks to the train. And it's just another big building looking to block off space in an area, and the 2 parking spaces in front for commercial use will be used by the business owner or a tenant renting the business. So if, for instance, a restaurant goes in there or something like that, I caution the board to look into traffic studies and safety.
Right. I appreciate that. I think.
And also they bear careful scrutiny to the last approvals because they seem to slip by the boards when there was a stop work order put on those buildings, and then it was allowed to continue at a period in time. And it looks very similar to the old building. I don't see too many changes in it, so that height makes me nervous as well.
We're going to have Mr. Brennan look at that and verify that, and McKenzie Engineering is going to have the supporting data for that. You know, again, the commercial requirement parking in the village bylaw is you can make use of the town parking lot. Obviously, that is somewhat use dependent. Obviously, I think if it was a food business, if it was like what used to be there for many years, it's probably not a smart idea to rely on the town parking lot. So I think, you know, we can condition what would happen depending on the use. And I think certain uses might have to generate on-site parking. Certain uses will not. So that's something we surely can condition.
I will repeat that it's going in there strictly for profit in an area that really can't accommodate it. And I would also ask the board to carefully consider past behaviors and the safety issue.
Understood, and that's why I said, you know, we need to go over the permit and make sure everything from that permit from 2012 and however it's been modified since has been complied with. So, thank you, Paul.
You know, the front of this building looks a lot like the building across the street.
Mr. Roberts, did you want to say something?
Yes, I just wanted to clarify one thing. Maybe it's a little bit of a history lesson, but the problem with the stop work order that one of the members from the public commented on, that was actually a bona fide issue regarding the interpretation of the bylaw, where all 5 board members, planning board members, couldn't agree on how to calculate square footage. We had one calculation. It wasn't a violation. It wasn't anything that anybody even said. We were ignoring what was going on. What happened was there was the board had come up with a thing called RGFA, which is residential gross floor area. There was disagreement among the board and our attorneys as to how to interpret it. The plans that were submitted actually had staircases going up to the third floor. When the issue was raised, that's when the stop work order went on. And it turned out, in order to resolve it, there had to be a town meeting to determine a better definition of RGFA. But I just wanted the public to know that that was the nature of the work stoppage. It wasn't like we were ignoring what we were supposed to do, or that we were playing hard and fast, has been alleged. We were doing what we thought was right. We went to countless planning board meetings to resolve the issue. When the board was unable to resolve the calculation of RGFA, we ended up agreeing that it would go to town meeting, and that's how that got resolved. Again, with regard to whether it fits in the neighborhood, and Jamie could talk about this a little bit. This building is less dense and smaller than the building that's right next to it. One of the problems that happened is that the small building that's there, even if we were to redo it, and this is really in everybody's interest, it's a problem right now when you set it next to the building that's next door to it. What this does is it creates a nice step down from the existing building with the homeowner in that unit, by the way, who's going to be the most impacted by it, is a supporter of the project. And what it's going to do is it's going to allow it to step down to the parking lot. So again, I would encourage the board to we're problem solvers. We want to work with the board on coming up with a project that is good for everybody. Anybody who's worked with us on this project knows that we had an interest in creating a project that Cohasset could be proud of. And where there may be some people in the neighborhood that don't like the project, the overwhelming sentiment of the owners and the neighbors and the neighborhood, which has experienced a financial rejuvenation as a result of this project, is that this has been a good project for the town of Cohasset. And I just thought I ought to say that we're not here to wreck the town. We're here to make a contribution to the town. And obviously, we'd like to make the homeowners happy. So that's our goal in this.
All right.
Oh, altruistic.
Thank you, Paul. I can see we're not going to get into a fight here about this. All right. We're going to continue this project. We're obviously going to give it the scrutiny that it deserves. Again, I want to keep with our schedule here. We obviously have things that we need to continue and discuss further. Plans need to be cleaned up. Agreement with the homeowners. A number of things have been brought up. I hope somebody's been taking notes about what they need. So, Cassandra, we're looking at the 6th and the 20th. 20th is the more open meeting time-wise right now. I would suggest that to the applicant that we continue this to December 20.
We agree.
Okay. All right. So, Amy, I'm sorry.
So moved.
No, hold on. Amy had her hand up. I didn't see it. Sorry.
I just want to say that the discussion is extensive enough that it would be advisable, in my view, that we start from the beginning. We establish the protocols that were originally in place. We follow the project, and then we talk about the iterations. The iterations are old enough and the circumstances in town are substantial enough that this is not going to be something we can go yes or no. I think we have more clarification that's required in order for us to represent all parties to the project as a whole. And so I would say I realize we are always under time constraints, but if we put it too close to Christmas, we're not going to be able to make the determinations that I think everybody deserves, so that when we leave the table, people feel like they've been heard. And so I don't know what the mechanism is for us to extend this to the point where we're going to be able to clarify the sets of issues which have been raised, but also the lingering concerns of the part of the neighborhood, which is not just this. It's like imagine in the future, as we talk about affordable housing, and it's supposed to be attached in some geographic way to transportation access. If we don't solve this one right well now, how do you think it's going to go down when we are trying to negotiate where the additional housing we are expected to provide is going to be placed in town? So I think that this is not an easy solution, and I don't think it's just moving it into another moment in which we come together with a little bit more information. I think there has to be some discussions amongst the parties before we do anything that brings them back to us again.
Kevin, briefly.
Amy made it really easy for me to stay brief. I would just concur with exactly what she said. The applicants need to make sure in their understanding of the sentiment in the neighborhood that they speak to all stakeholders, including ones that may not be necessarily have an interest in the outcome of this, as already a part of an existing association, or have some type of vested interest in it, but just as a neighbor in the area there. And if they don't necessarily share the view right now, try to get to the root in a cordial way to find out why and whether they can make amends and make modifications with those parties before they come in front of this board.
All right, well, in light of that, shall we continue this to our first meeting in Jan? And by the way, I wanted to remind Carolyn too, the other thing is your legal opinion, since this is a modification, if the total number of units now brings in the inclusionary zoning bylaw. Do we want to continue this to the first meeting in January? Which is what date?
So you haven't technically set your 2024 schedule yet. I did have a draft on the agenda to discuss later. I had proposed that the first January meeting be January 3rd. After that, the proposal was for January 17th.
Well, Tom, it does no harm to schedule to continue to the 20th of December. It's possible the applicant a week ahead might not have submitted stuff, and that he asked to continue at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care.
It doesn't.
Personally, I don't care if it's the 20th, but I think Amy and Kevin's points are well taken, and the neighbors' points are well taken, and we could be faced with another continuance. So that's
of course, fine. I would expect it if there's still issues to discuss and resolve.
Yeah, I want to move on with our schedule,
or
Mr.
lack
Roberts,
of information.
Mr. Roberts, do you want to volunteer for the January 3rd or 17th, or?
I just want to say that I know, but this is about being human and being in the middle of holiday season. I don't think we should try to put something as substantial as a micro neighborhood on on our schedule and then think we're going to solve it 4 days before Christmas. I think
we didn't say that we were going to solve it. I mean,
nobody said we were going to solve it.
No. It would just be the next hearing, and then we could continue it again and again and again.
If we don't have things resolved to our satisfaction on the 20th, it gets continued again. The alternative is already scheduled.
Do we even an assessment of whether we are going to have enough people to attend the meeting? This is like the 20th of December is 4 days before Christmas.
Okay, we should all shut down because there's a holiday, I guess. But
I'll be here, but You know, there is a logistical issue that Amy brings up, and
All
that
right,
is
then
we
why
do
don't we
need
do
a
that?
super majority for a modification, not
You are fine. So
of an existing special permit.
let's schedule it for the 3rd, and then we will go from there. If we're not satisfied that we're ready to make a decision on the 3rd, then we'll go forward. We'll continue it again from there, all right?
Okay,
So
was
I'll
that a
make the
motion? I'll
I'll
second it.
make the motion that we continue this to January 3rd, 2024 at 6:30. And I think,
seconded it.
Mr. Roberts, you should heed what Ms. Glassmeyer said about talking to the neighbors about this. I would also caution the neighbors, however, that all over town, and we get this sometimes in other parts of the village, there is a boundary line between the village and residential areas. And you know, you get to do what the zoning in a particular district does up to the boundary lines of that district. So I want everybody to just be realistic here about what's going on. So I understand, you know, it brings up the idea that has been brought up before, that there should be some kind of buffer zoning between, when you're at the boundary between the village and the residential districts and the harbor and the residential districts, and that's something the bylaw committee is considering. But right now, the rules are that we have these boundaries, we have zoning in each of the districts, and it is what it is. But I do think you should speak to the neighbors, because you know, you profess to say that you know, the neighborhood's in favor of this. I don't hear that's anywhere near uniform. So I would encourage you over this time, Mr. Roberts, to speak to, you know, Mr. Plex and Mr. Brady and others in the neighborhood and try to come to some consensus.
Yes,
All right.
I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
Chairman Callahan, I think that I was not aware of the two gentlemen who spoke today. I will, this has been posted. I am available to them. I'll
All right.
say it publicly, to sit down with them, and I'll
Okay.
do my best to reach out to the neighbors.
All right, that's good. So the motion is to continue it to January 3rd at 6:30. Second, please. Did Clark second it?
Didn't I second it a couple of times? I'll
Okay,
second it a third.
Roll call, all in favor?
Clark Brewer, aye.
Tom Callahan, aye.
Amy Glassmeyer, aye.
Kevin Heine, aye.
Deirdre Hobson, aye.
All right, thank you. See you then.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time.
All right. We are now next to continue the public hearing on the definitive subdivision plan for 94 Black Horse Lane.
Tom, before you go into that, I just wanted to make the board aware that I noticed an error in the agenda for tonight, not related to 94 Black Horse Lane, but I know that that's going to be a longer discussion, so I wanted to bring it up ahead of time. You have had an A&R application, and that was intended to be put on this evening's agenda.
Yeah.
Somehow it didn't make it on the agenda. The deadline for that A&R is the 28th. With the holiday, my recommendation would be to hold a special meeting for just the A&R, either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday of next week. Whatever the board's pleasure is.
Next week.
We
Of
only
next
need
week.
a quorum. If people are gonna be out of town.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna be out of
I know
town
Wednesday is
Tuesday.
difficult, but I wanted to offer it as an option just in case.
I am going to be out of town Tuesday.
I haven't looked at it. I don't know if it's simple or
I
complicated.
mean, I got this thing, so I suppose I could do it at Zoom. but
I will be not available.
Yeah.
I'm out of town too.
The 28th is a Tuesday. When did they set the bylaw committee meeting? That was the first Monday in December, correct?
That's December 4th.
December 4th.
But the decision for the A&R has to be filed by the 28th.
Not available.
All right, can people meet Monday, the 27th?
I cannot, Tom, sorry.
That's all right. Who else can? All right, well, 4 of us can. Let's do Monday, the 27th. Just that matter.
Just
Has it
the
been
A&R.
Yeah, has it been circulated to us? Yep.
Yes, it was posted. It was included in this week's staff report. It just, I don't know if it was just Didn't make it on the PDF or what, but it's
Okay.
not on the posted agenda.
All right. Yeah, and
Cassandra,
then-
could I just ask, could you confirm the date that was actually received? I know it's dated November 6th, but when was it
Correct.
actually received?
It was actually received on the 7th.
Thanks.
Right, we'll deal with it on the 27th and hopefully, you know, if it's complete enough that, you know, we don't have to ask for a continuance, but, the only, you know, tonight, since we're gonna be going for a little while, I'm sure on 94 Black Horse Lane, on the 27th, we'll deal with your 2024 calendar suggestions. That should be a quick thing.
That's fine. You could even push that to the December 6th meeting.
Yeah, okay. Well,
If
yeah,
you
well, just-
prefer. There's
Yeah, well, it
no
depends.
particular rush.
Yeah, December 6th is filling up. So, all right. So
Since it was
I-
brought up, I'm just gonna offer, 2 of those meetings are during vacation school weeks, which I think could be problematic for,
which ones are those?
For 2024.
there's if you look at the 2024, there's a February vacation week. I think it may be dropped in there, and I think there's an April vacation week and maybe dropped in there as well. At
Okay.
least for one of
Okay.
them, if not both of them.
All right.
I will revise ahead of the December meeting. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. I do not have children, so I had no idea.
And I just think for the public too, if we're going to look for public participation,
Right.
because of
Yeah,
vacation
absolutely.
week, it's probably better to stay away from those.
Yeah.
Nope, I completely agree. So
And-
I will
and-
revise that and have it ready for your December 6th meeting.
Yeah,
Or
and ditto for the bylaw committee as well. We don't want to meet those weeks either. We got too much to discuss with not a full board on slate and the public available to be here.
not
All
a
right,
problem.
so let's go to 94 Black Horse Lane. Let's promote who we need to promote.
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna mute and hang back a little bit on this, as I'm a non-voting.
Yeah,
Planning
so
board
we have just 4 voters on this, and correct me, we will have to have all 4 vote in the affirmative, or is it 3 to 1?
I have to indicate that I have a 4:00 AM airplane flight out of town, and I'm not going to be able to move beyond 9:00. I can't do it. So that's going to set us up in a difficult situation.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just address your question about the quantum of vote, you need a majority of the board. So you need 3 to approve a subdivision.
And if it ends up being 3 of us, we have to do 3 to 0.
Correct.
Okay.
And we should just note for the record or read into the record Ms. Hobson's certification so that she can still be qualified to vote.
Yeah, and if Amy leaves the meeting tonight before we finish it, she's out, because didn't she miss another one? Is that, or would her partial participation tonight keep her in the mix?
I can't recall if she missed another session.
Did you?
although-
You did not.
Oh, you did not? Oh, okay.
You did not, okay.
Okay, that's fine, then that's fine. Then you do the same thing, listen to the tape, and we'll do your Mullen thing the next time. Okay. All right, so where do we begin? Carolyn, do you want to begin? Is there anything you want to report to us, or you and Adam together want to report anything to us?
Adam and I had about a 30-second phone call between when your executive session ended and the public session began. So I don't know that there's anything that I have to report other than the board's counter proposal with respect to the mitigation being sought for the pavement of the public portion of Black Horse Lane that was conveyed to Attorney Brodsky. I don't know if he's had an opportunity to discuss that with his client or not. I can also tell you that we have further revised some provisions of the decision. And I think we have come to some sort of agreement, at least on some of the conditions, assuming the board is, of course, approving it, because right now everything is being drafted in a vacuum, but assuming that the board is ultimately going to approve the subdivision. So with that, I don't have anything further to report to the board, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Chair Callahan, it's Adam Brodsky. Could I set the stage if I could, please?
Yeah, go ahead briefly. I mean, I don't know that we have to get into excruciating details unless you revise something on the plans, but
No, sir.
we have a lot of abutter comments that we've received, and I do want to give the abutters an opportunity to be heard, so.
Yes, thank you. And good evening, Adam Brodsky. As you know, I represent the applicant KD Custom Homes, represented by Nino DeNuno, and Carmen Hudson is here. And there's no additional information provided. We believe that we've resolved all of the technical issues, and so it's our hope that the commission will close the public hearing this evening and issue a decision. I have been working with town council on proposed conditions, and I've provided our last comments on those, and I'm happy to address those. I think the only material issue that's outstanding is the question of mitigation. And I was informed that the commission was considering requiring a payment of $85,000 to be applied to the repaving of the public portion of Black Horse Lane. You may remember that I had made an offer of $15,000 as mitigation, and just to clarify, that was a contribution from KD Custom Homes on behalf of 95 Black Horse Lane, and a contribution from JAK LLC with respect to 70 Black Horse Lane, because it is our hope that the approval of a subdivision road resolves the issue regarding the A&R for 70 Black Horse Lane. A figure of $85,000, with all due respect to the board, is unreasonable, and I don't think there's a rational basis for it. And the reasoning is that I'll share our reasoning with you is, I've tried to do some research on other mitigation required for subdivisions in Cohasset. The only one that I've come across that is ostensibly relevant is the approval of the Toll House subdivision in 2013. That was 41 lots of luxury homes developed by Toll Brothers, and they were required to pay a total of $75,000. You divide that by 41 lots, it's roughly $1,800 per lot for their mitigation. The suggestion that a 4-lot subdivision would be responsible for the payment of $85,000, I'd suggest, is simply unreasonable. We are willing to meet the board somewhere in the middle, and I do have additional authority tonight to increase our offer of $25,000. We've done some back of the envelope calculations, and the total cost to repave the public portion of Black Horse Lane, we don't think exceeds $100,000. And I should say that the general condition of Black Horse Lane, except in a few areas where homeowners on Black Horse Lane have recently done work, such as installing pools and installing utility connections, is generally good. But we do know that the town has plans to repave the public portion of Black Horse Lane. Again, Mr. DeNuno's in the business, and his back of the envelope estimate is that's not going to cost more than $100,000. There are presently 16 existing homes on Black Horse Lane. We're proposing to add 3. Again, you'll remember that Mr. DeNuno's home at 94 is an existing house. It's included within the 4-lot subdivision, but we're only proposing 3 additional homes. So the 3 additional homes is less than 20% of the total number of homes on the entirety of Black Horse Lane. That's the public portion as well as the private portion. Yet an offer of, or demand of $85,000, it's essentially 85% of the total cost of repaving Black Horse Lane, which is a public way and is not the responsibility of a private developer to maintain. That's a municipal obligation. So our offer of, again, we've increased our offer to $25,000. That's much more. That's a quarter of the cost of the estimated cost to repave Black Horse Lane. It's more than the 3 additional homes. I mean, it's less than 20% of the total number of homes. So this project would be paying a disproportionate amount of money towards the improvement of Black Horse Lane. So we respectfully suggest that $25,000 is a reasonable mitigation, which we can easily agree to, and not 85,000. And you know, it's our hope that we could close the public hearing, come to agreement, and the board could vote on the project this evening. Thank you.
All right. I don't want to get into an extensive negotiation of this in the public meeting. Even if we close the hearing tonight, we're all not up to snuff on the amendments to the proposed decision, so we're not voting on it tonight. We could close the hearing and there'd still be an opportunity to negotiate further, but I'll just say this. I don't think there is a comparison of this project to others in town. Toll Brothers was a completely new subdivision with a fully subdivision compliant road built out to the public access point, you know, of Beechwood Street. This is completely different. You are asking for there's 4 houses, and I keep reminding you, we're actually looking at 8. And tacked onto a road that, for whatever reason, is what it is. And I've made the analogy before, like we say in law about personal injury cases, about the eggshell plaintiff. You take your plaintiff as you find them, or you take your access as you find it. And you have a substandard access that has existed there for decades. And that access needs to be improved. You're adding a burden to it. I don't think counting the number of houses and doing it on a per house basis is a fair comparison. But if you want to go there, you say there's 16 on the existing Black Horse Lane, well, 8 are being added. So that's, a 50% increase. There's going to be traffic, there's going to be construction, it's going to eat up the road. When Black Horse Lane needs to be repaved, nobody can predict. It could be next year after your construction has torn it up. It could be 5 years from now. The number has reasonably come from our own officials in the town. It's certainly within the number that you estimate it's going to cost to do it. And I open to more discussion about it, but we owe a duty to these people on Black Horse Lane, and I'm going to get to them. I don't know if you've seen all the public comment that we've gotten since the last meeting in the last few days. And some of it has been directed toward us to indeed get some mitigation for the pavement of Black Horse Lane. Others are saying, this is a small road. Historically, it just ended up that way, and we shouldn't allow any development whatsoever. And I unfortunately will say to those people, well, the people on this end of Black Horse Lane, where Mr. Brodsky's clients are, have a right to develop their land as much as everybody else on Black Horse Lane. But these projects that your 2 clients have are adding a burden, and not an insignificant burden, to an already substandard road. We're not saying, hey, make all of Black Horse Lane 20 feet wide all the way out to Summer Street. I think, our request is reasonable. The board, that is just my view. And again, I think we'll have opportunity to still go back and forth a little bit. Let's see what the other board members have to say. And I don't know if there's anybody in the public who wants to speak. Now would be the time to raise your hand, and you'll be promoted. But I think everybody on the board, and I assume you, Adam, have seen the letters, and we all get the gist of the feelings of the neighbors here. Again,
Sure,
I don't think we can stop this development, where some people wish us we could do so, but at the same time, you can't turn away from the fact that there'll be 8 new houses at least up here, and that, you are adding a burden to an already substandard road, and you take that road as you find it again.
Chair Callan, I just want to make a couple of quick points. You keep saying 8 new houses. That's simply not true.
Well,
there already are existing houses. There are 2 buildings at 70, 80, and 90. There's an existing house at 94. Please let me finish, sir. and we're adding 3 additional lots. I know that we have a respectful disagreement as to the size of this subdivision project, but I just need to correct that. Second, you'll remember that we presented testimony that there's no evidence of any motor vehicle accidents on Black Horse Lane. I know it's less than ideal as far as a public way, but there's no real-time safety issue, and we presented to you traffic study and the expert testimony of a traffic engineer that says that this project's not going to create a traffic hazard. So I just want those facts to be clear. With respect to the abutters, there's nothing new there. These are the same sentiments that they have presented. Again, I mean, your role obviously to manage public comment. But you know, the neighborhood wants Black Horse, the public portion of Black Horse Lane to be repaid. That's fine. We just respectfully believe that that should be a cost borne by the municipality and not by an individual developer. With that said, the developer is willing to provide a reasonable sum for mitigation. And I know that, I don't know if Mr. DeNuno has something to add. I know that is.
I'll just, yeah, before I'll recognize him in a moment, and then we have someone on from the public as well. If I say 8 new, it's going to be 8 total up there. And again, I know you want to separate your subdivision from the JAK properties, but there will be 8 houses up there at some point. That is the point of the A&Rs on the other side of the street, the number of houses that are already there. And I don't think the planning board's in a position to ignore that. And you know, all due respect, you're representing 2 different clients in 2 different situations. But I don't think the planning board can ignore all of that. So that's the only point I make. And I think when you're adding a burden to an inadequate road, you do have to share that burden, maybe take the majority of that burden. But again, we're open to discussing it further, and I think we'll have the opportunity to do so before we actually issue written conditions for this project. Mr. DeNuno, if you're still out there and you want to be heard, recognize you, otherwise.
Just echo this clarification of there are 5 existing structures or homes. We're proposing 3 additional. So it's misleading to say that we're considering 8 new homes down there. There are already 5. I'm in one of them. So we're talking about 3 homes, which we provided traffic studies for. It's a minimal increase to the neighborhood. There's construction all up and down that road, especially this summer. We wouldn't be adding any more to it.
And Chair Callan, can I offer
we can
just
agree. We can agree to disagree on that one, but that's all right.
It's a fact that there's 5 existing houses there. We're not adding 8, we're adding 3. The other developer splits his, there's already 2 structures being used as homes there. So it's not 8, it's 3.
And Chair Callahan, just another piece of information, just so you understand and remind the board the context. The cost of the common driveway, which is presently on appeal to land court, which we've stayed in order to pursue this compromise plan, that common driveway would cost $100,000. The subdivision road that KD Customs is willing to construct, according to the plans presented to you, is going to cost $550,000. So I just want to put this in context as to the efforts that the developer is undertaken in order to reach a compromise here. And so it's not only the mitigation fee, it's the additional $450,000 that they would spend if the subdivision road is approved over a common driveway, which is presently under appeal. So I just wanted to put it in a larger context and just to remind the board the lengths that the client has gone through to try and reach a compromise with the board.
Yeah, and I understand, the board is well aware of the litigation posture that we're all in and the risks that are attendant to both sides in that, and we appreciate what's been done. We also appreciate that we've granted, you know, are willing to, or in a position to grant waivers to accommodate this project. All right, Amy, before I get to you, from the public, Bernadette Faulkner, if you got your hand up, if you want to be promoted, we'll do that. If someone, George, with no last name, is asking how are the 4 lots going to be 8 lots, well, again, looking at the totality of the development on this end of the road. So that's how I'm coming to that conclusion. So Bernadette and George both now have their hand up. If they want to be promoted, just do that. And while we're waiting for those, Amy, you have your hand up, so go ahead.
I think that everyone on this conversation understands the notion of carrying capacity. And we know that there are set levels of carrying capacity. It's not that there's just a zero and there's an absolute. We're faced with that kind of problem, which is that the inevitability of the build out for this situation is such that the existing conditions are already degraded. That is, during excess rain, during excess use, the road floods, the road is basically almost impassable with mud. So we're facing a situation in which we're not blaming anybody for anything. We're basically facing an inevitable condition, which is if you add more people, at some point, the system is going to break down. As the members of the planning board, our job is to ensure that every person who purchases a piece of property in that domain is going to be able to experience the same use value, but we can't guarantee it when it hits a maximum limit of the capacity of the situation. And that's where we are. Now, there are also other situations which, if we could go around to the neighborhood and negotiate with each of the landowners and they would all agree that one outcome would be better than another, maybe that would be some compensatory adjustment that could produce an outcome that might be slightly better. But at this moment, we are faced with a rate limiting condition. With the road is physically incapable of carrying more people, and the context is physically vulnerable to sea level rise and storm surge. So we have more than just somebody driving up and down the road to be concerned with. We have to worry about the ability to get emergency vehicles through there. We have to be concerned about whether or not flooding would make it impossible for people to access their homes. We're not just concerned about what is being presented before us. We are looking at a piece of property that should naturally be considered a subdivision. If we did that, it would be on the basis of the value of the infrastructure required for subdivision build out.
Chair Callan, I just remind the planning board that the subdivision road is not located within the floodplain. Thank you.
We have plenty of evidence to indicate that the road now is degrading the wetlands area. So it's not, you can say it doesn't exist, but we have plenty of evidence to say that that does happen. Therefore, we're responsible for that. If the town does not hold up our regulations that we've agreed to with the state about deterioration of wetlands, then we are liable for legal recourse.
Ms. Glassmeyer, I think you're referring to perhaps a small section of the public portion of the road, but there's no record of any wetland alteration with respect to anything related to our project or even wetland alteration at all. I'm not aware of any flooding in the public portion of that. And in terms of capacity, you've heard the testimony certainly of our traffic expert that there's going to be no issue with capacity. I've not heard any testimony from any experts with respect to the capacity of the public portion of Black Horse Lane. So all I ask is that you please focus on the application and the evidence that's been presented. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Faulkner, if you could indicate in the Q&A whether you want to be promoted to ask a question, we can certainly do so. And I see that whoever George was has disappeared. Oh, no, there's George, Mr. McGoldrick. So good. You unmute yourself. You can have the floor.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. George McGoldrick, kind of representing the Gulf River Association, of which the property abuts. The mission of the Gulf River is to preserve the health of the river. And in doing so, one of the issues that the river has is the amount of fertilizer and lawns that have been created along the river and don't pay attention to the laws that don't allow fertilizer. So we are not against development per se, but we just want to ensure that whatever development goes forward is in line with whatever the town rules are. So I've got a couple of questions. The first is, there are 2 additional homes on Black Horse Lane. Forgive me, I don't know the numbers. Is it 90 and 94? How were those approved if there's not a road there?
There was, I think 94 has been there for a very long time. 80 and 90 are I think 2 of the newer houses.
Correct.
I believe they got approved by A&Rs, and in retrospect, probably mistakenly issued A&Rs, because a determination had to be made that the existing driveway that's out there was adequate for access. We've taken the current position we've taken with respect to the pending A&R by 70 Black Horse Lane is that no, it isn't adequate. Past planning boards have said otherwise. And there's a dispute of whether there was misrepresentation made about what the status of it, whether Black Horse, that part is part of the public layout of Black Horse Lane or not. But be that as it may, they got approved by, as far as I know, by A&R, the A&R process. And again,
So,
I remind
go ahead.
everybody that, 1969, this town changed us from suburban frontage to 50-foot frontage, and that leads to more lots on a given way when you only need 50-foot frontage to get to that way. So, this leads to the number of houses that are there, and, we live with those past decisions.
So I guess the question there is whether that was a legal way or not, and that's whether not to be decided tonight. And that's maybe why you guys are asking for a subdivision here versus allowing the developer to go after the same decision that you made for those 2 lots.
Well, there were different contexts. The 70, 80, and 90 have been proceeding in the A&R process. 94 has been proceeding first on the common driveway process, and we turned that down, and they're appealing that decision. And now, as a result of that decision, we encourage them actually to go the subdivision route so that we would get a better access road into this whole area that will, also benefit the owners of 70, 80, and 90. So that's the two different processes by which each side of that way has come before us, and here we are.
Mr. Chair.
But with the subdivision, we have the ability then to seek mitigation for the existing public portion of Black Horse Lane. And that's
So the existing portion of Black Horse Lane is about 10 to 12 feet in length. The town actually owns 20 feet. So why wouldn't you request and require that this proposal enlarge the existing Black Horse Lane to allow 2-lane traffic? Because right now there's only 1-lane traffic at the pinch point in front of the Stones house and in front of Lynn's house. It's 1 lane. You can't get 2 cars. You can't get a fire truck and another car there. So I know that legally the Commonwealth allows planning boards to do off-site mitigation. So as opposed to paving the existing 8 or 10 feet, I would suggest that the board looks at creating a 20-foot wide path through there to allow safety for fire trucks, FedEx trucks, landscapers, everybody else going back and forth to that area. My last comment is, if you do go forward with this subdivision, is there any way that you can move the new subdivision road over 10 feet to the west so that it would preclude the JAK from adding 4 more houses? Because that's my original question is Mr. DeNiro said he's only asking for 4 lots, but if he puts a road in there, JAK can actually add more homes. If you move it to the west and don't allow access, then you're staying at the 4 lots. And I don't know, I can't speak for the residents of Black Horse Lane, but obviously that must be much more preferable to only allow the 4 lots that are being seen instead of creating 8 lots for that street.
The original idea of the common driveway would eliminate that altogether, but that was shot down by the planning board.
Well, as the planning board just admitted, maybe there's more thought.
Minimize
As a
impact
planning
on everything. So here we are. We'd love to
As
go
the
back
plan-
to the common driveway.
As the planning board just admitted, there's been mistakes made in the past. Maybe this needs more thought going
No.
forward.
No, I'm not going to accept that because the common driveway, the way that's there now is inadequate and safe to serve the number of houses that are out there. And Monday night, we changed the common driveway regs to not allow access by up to 8 lots. We brought it back to the rest of the planet by saying 4 lots. We were a complete outlier on allowing 8 lots to be accessed over an inadequate common driveway. And I don't think we should.
But that doesn't
go back
apply.
on that.
That doesn't apply here because they've already submitted.
I understand that, but the principle, the underlying principle of it all is that a common driveway serving that many lots is inherently unsafe. And going the common driveway route does nothing for the people on Black Horse Lane. They're still going to have the same number of cars and the residents on this back portion that'll be accessing their road, and we can't get any mitigation for them in that respect. And that's some of the things that we had to weigh in our decision and how we were going down this road. And right now, the only issue that's separating us is the dollar figure on the mitigation. With respect to your comment about widening Black Horse Lane, I would, there's people on Black Horse Lane who probably think that the unpaved portion is theirs or part of their front yard or whatever. And, if they want to take away 8 feet, they want to tell us that, by all means, tell the town that. But I think there is a certain responsibility that the town has to make that decision to widen Black Horse Lane. But at the same time, there is an obligation on these property owners here in the back end of Black Horse Lane to contribute to that because they are adding capacity to it and adding traffic. So anyway, anybody else wish to be heard on this? Ms. Faulkner had put
Some
her
people in the Q&A.
Hmm?
You have people in the Q&A that are interested.
Yeah. Ms. Faulkner put in one comment. Her comment is, first, there are only 4 homes on the 2 parcels under discussion, not 5, and there will be 4 additional homes at minimum, not 3. I strongly disagree with Mr. Brodsky on the condition and safety of the current road. I assure you that every resident of Black Horse Lane agrees with me. Resident experience tops your traffic study. I spoke with the DPW, and Black Horse Lane is not on the current list to be repaved. Brian Joyce told me it's in the normal 20-year cycle that every road is in. It doesn't have a specific date at this point. And most of Black Horse Lane road and properties are in the floodplain, and access to this development requires passing through the full length of Black Horse Lane. It is very relevant to this decision. And I think some of the letters we got, gave, the anecdotal evidence that because it's so narrow, if there is a passage of 2 vehicles, they have to intrude, onto lawns and wetlands. And again, we all have to take Black Horse Lane as we find it. It is an inadequate road, yet the owners up at the end here are entitled to develop their property as well. You got to make the best out of a bad situation here. Frankly, the town has a responsibility, but the added burden by the new owners bear responsibility as well, in my view. So, what's the board's pleasure here? Carolyn, let me ask you this. If we close the hearing, what time constraint are we under to issue the decision?
Mr. Chair, you still have just the total of 135 days for the board to vote. That doesn't change unless, of course, the applicant would be willing to extend that. So By my
We're-
count, that brings us to December 8th for having to vote on this.
And we're meeting again, Cassandra, on,
You are meeting again
December 6th.
on December 6th.
Wednesday is the 6th.
Correct. So the
Okay.
8th is that Friday. And Carolyn, just a clarification on my end. The 8th is the deadline for not only them to vote, but also for the decision to be filed.
Right.
Okay.
So it would have to be voted on. Because I'm not sure everybody on the board has yet seen any of the draft conditions that you and Mr. Brodsky have been going back and forth on. You know, and I've seen some of them, and again, Adam, nobody's saying you guys haven't made some concessions on some points, and I think that's fine. It's what the process should do, but we still have an opportunity to go back and forth a little more. I don't know, I'll leave it to the board's decision, but I don't see the point. We're not getting any new information. We're simply at a negotiation point about a number. And either we impose that number or we negotiate an acceptable number. I don't know that there's any point of keeping the decision open any further. We have to act one way or the other on December 6th, even if we continue this, correct, Carolyn? We have to we either close it tonight or we close it on the 6th. We have to do.
Yeah, exactly. And,
Okay.
you know, to your point, meeting on the 6th doesn't give us a whole lot of time to get the decision finalized. So that's why we'll have to go back and forth offline between now and then.
Yeah,
Can we not try to negotiate a reasonable number using average per square foot for?
I'm sorry.
I don't think we can, I don't think we can. You know, you're telling us that it's $100,000 to repave the existing Black Horse Lane. Okay.
So
You know,
want-
and
you want
that's if you want, that's if you 100% paid for that. And I understand your argument, the town has an obligation. I think the town has the primary obligation to decide to widen it or not. And take away what some people think are their front lawns, but I think there's a number. I don't think
residents just this past year have done beautiful work to their driveways and homes with cobblestone aprons right up to that current paved line. So I don't see any of them wanting to give up, you know, the tens of thousands of dollars they just spent on improvements. So if you're at 85, we're at 30, we can't just come up with a number that's reasonable. I don't want to pay 100%, but
I understand where you're coming from. So I understand that. We had an executive session, you know, we discussed the number. We have to go, you know, how the full board comes up with a number at this point without an executive session, I don't know, but there isn't.
I don't think enough weight is being put in the benefit of what we've been pushed to propose with this subdivision to the town as far as safety concerns that is mitigated with this proposal as far as a fire truck turnaround, versus, you know, we're getting pretty close to just let's go back to litigation where the town gets none of that. So there's no benefit on the safety end. So
Assuming you win, Mr. DeNuno, we weighed this too. There's risks in litigation that Mr. Brodsky will tell you about on both sides. There's costs.
It's pretty good in our direction, so we're looking at it that way.
The cost of the litigation will be more than the difference we're apart right now. I can assure you of that.
Yes, but nowhere close to the difference between a common driveway and the subdivision plan we're proposing. It's $400,000 apart. So I'm trying to compromise with the plan.
I hear you, and you know,
but this number is ridiculous. You're at 85. We started at 15. $40,000.
All right, hold on one second. George McGoldrick wants to ask one more question. Yes, George, go ahead. You could promote George again, please.
I just promoted him.
Thank you. So did I just hear 40,000 was thrown out? Is that what I just heard? Mr. DeNuno, did you just say $40,000?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, George, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I apologize for trying to appear to be negotiating, but I have my interest is zero. I really don't even know the developer. My interest is the protection of the river, and the less lawns and fertilizer that show up protects the river, which is not in good health. So, as a developer, if you're requiring him to do a sub of the JAK property back, what benefit? I don't see the benefit of that. I'd rather take some of that 400,000 that you were requiring to build that and put that towards improving the balance of Black Horse Lane and maybe improving some of the wetland areas. So I understand why you wanted to require him to do a subdivision because of the common driveway, but if you do the common driveway, then there's maybe less opportunity for JAK to build more houses. So there's only 3 houses being built back there, not 8. And some of that, to have sidewalks on 200 or 300 feet of his property does nothing. Maybe you can create a wider Black Horse Lane to allow the FedEx trucks and the landscapers and the maids, anybody else to get through there. So again, I'm not proponent.
No, I appreciate your comments, but we're not going to revisit this whole thing. I mean, we also have to weigh our litigation pots. JAK is suing us too, and we have to weigh our litigation position and the risks of that litigation as well as this. And the proposal is that we're going to resolve all of this universally because Mr. Brodsky represents both clients. So we have to, there's a lot of other things that you aren't privy to and can't be privy to that we have to think about it in this. And we're trying to weigh what's best. Now, regarding fertilizer on the Concom, when I used to be on the Concom, we would have a no fertilizer provision all the time. Do I think we could probably do that as a condition to this? Yes, but it's only going to cover the lots of this subdivision. It's not going to cover the JAK lots. That because
well, there's bylaws that require that people don't pay attention to bylaws. So if you give someone
they're conservation bylaws. They're not zoning bylaws. But
no, I understand that, but there's no enforcement because there's nobody that can go up and down the river.
Yeah.
My point, Mr. Chairman, my point being is that maybe we're at a point in time where you need to look at the whole thing again, because maybe pushing him towards a subdivision, which at the first point sounded good, maybe we can use those funds instead of having sidewalks on 200 feet of nothing in Black Horse Lane. You can use those funds for something better.
Where are we going to get those funds? Where are we going to get those funds? He isn't going to turn the $400,000 over to us.
I don't know him enough to say he might give it less.
I'll give you 40.
No, but you go to the common driveway.
40. He isn't going to take the 400 he saves on building a common driveway versus a road and just give it to us to widen Black Horse Lane. And there's no consensus that's what Black Horse Lane wants. I think they want a safer road, yes, but I'm not sure that they want an 8-foot wider safer road given what they have up there now. We don't, again, this is now coming at the 11th hour, and I appreciate your comments, but I will tell you that with our council's help, we have debated this and negotiated, debated amongst ourselves, and have chosen a course of action that overall we think is best for the town and best for the residents of Black Horse Lane.
I appreciate your time. I'm sorry to take your time. I appreciate it.
No,
Thanks
that's
much.
all right. No, you always bring good comments to the table. All right, so Amy, go ahead.
I just am reaching a point where I'm going to have to excuse myself, so I need to announce that to you.
Maybe it's just me.
Yeah, no, we all
Yeah.
we all froze all of a sudden.
We all froze.
Chair Callahan, this is Adam Brodsky. I just would like, I'd like to repeat the request for the board to please consider closing the public hearing. And the reason I'm asking that you do that is somewhat personal. I'm not available on December 6th. If you close the public hearing, my presence is not critical to this regardless. But it would certainly make the management of your hearing on December 6th a little bit easier from our point of view.
Yes, and we live here, we are here for your convenience.
No, sir, I was just.
All right, no,
saying, honestly, my problem, I would ask
I
for.
get it. I don't, you don't have to explain. You don't have to explain. We all have schedules. Yeah, Amy, and you need to leave soon too. So I think we're at the point, we just need to make a decision. If we're closing the hearing, there's no new information to be had. Other than that, we have a new offer. We have the time to consider that. And, you know, either way, we have to make a decision on December 6th, the time constraints of the statute.
So I would like to make a motion that we continue this discussion, and we ask all the members of the conversation that they look deep into what is most important to them and come back on December 8th with a plan to close this and make a recommendation. But I don't think we're done yet.
Yeah, Adam, one of the things that is a problem for us is how do we as a group, as a board, discuss a further negotiating position? We don't have the opportunity to do that except on the 6th by scheduling a new executive session before this hearing. The draft of the decision would certainly be ready to the point of all it is plugging in the number in this condition about mitigation. So we can certainly on the 6th have the necessary discussion we need to do legally and issue a decision that night. Your presence, I understand you'd want to be there, but there'd really be no discussion. I think we all agree we're at the point of the only point to discuss at this point is the mitigation amount. I trust that the rest of the board will not have objections to the rest of the draft that has been made. Of course, I can't predict that absolutely, but I don't think there'd be a lot else. So I think maybe we can't close it because I can't think of another legal context where the group of us can meet and make that final decision on a number.
But Chair Callan, you don't need the hearing to be open to do that. If you close the public hearing, you're still going to meet in executive session on the 6th, and you're going to make a decision regarding what you're going to require for mitigation, and then you'll vote on that at the public portion of your meeting. There's nothing to be gained by keeping the hearing open.
No,
I will counter. I will just counter that. May I? I just think that the public has and the public would include residents on that street, and they may wish to further comment between now and have the opportunity to do so by us keeping the public opportunity open for them to do so by not closing it. And I think that's an important consideration in this discussion.
Yeah, Adam, I don't think there's no detriment one way or the other. We just simply know that on the 6th, we have to make a decision and issue a written decision. And we can be prepared to do that.
And again, it's the board's decision. The detriment to the applicant is the applicant continues to have to respond to additional public comment and new issues raised at the end of the day. We're at very late in the process, and now we're still dealing with new information that's being presented, which again, you control the process.
In fairness, you know, we've heard all of the abutters comments. None of them are new to any of us, and I don't think that has swayed us, you know, substantially one way or the other tonight. So I think I wouldn't overstate that concern. All right, what's the board's pleasure? Who wants to make a motion?
I make a motion to continue the hearing to December 8th or 6th?
No, December 6th. 6:30.
That's right.
Executive, you know, with an executive session, we will. I mean, we did this one at 5:30 tonight. You know, an executive session on the subject at 5:30 on the 6th.
I will say that 5:30 for anybody commuting in from Boston is really tough.
I know.
Why did we decide to have it an hour earlier than the start of the meeting, rather
Because
than
because
later.
the last
in the meeting.
executive session we did went almost an hour and we cut into our regular meeting for a half hour and inconvenienced the people waiting. And tonight we used up that hour. So.
Okay, so, but the issue is, as a standard policy, we have traditionally done our meetings from a start of 6:30 and then 7:30 would be the time we would start the public hearing. And I'm saying it's just really tough to get back if you leave your job at 4:30 and try to make a 5:30 meeting. It's very difficult.
I suggest we do it that way. It's gonna be the easier way. We already have other things scheduled on the 6th that people are anticipating starting at 6:30.
Okay, well, I would ask that after that, this happens from this point forward, that we have a collective discussion about when we start an executive session. Unless you want to have it be the situation of people being unable to actually be in their home to look at the computer screen, because
That's a big, look, we can count how many executive sessions we have on one hand. We'll deal with it as a case by case basis. I mean, this one, we've had 2 executive sessions that have taken an hour of our time each time, so we need to schedule it accordingly. All right, so the motion is to continue it to December 6th, 6:30, with the executive session at 5:30. All in favor? I'll start the roll call. Tom Callahan, aye. Amy, you're next.
Amy Glassmeyer, aye.
Kevin Heine, aye.
Deirdre Hobson, aye.
All right. If there's any kind of development or proposal, Adam, before then, you'll see it. We'll get the rest of the conditions finalized so that you can see that ahead of time. And we'll try to make this go as smoothly as we can on the 6th, but you'll know that there's a decision on the 6th.
Thank you very much. Good night.
All right, thank you all. Thank you, Mr. DeNuno.
Thank you. Good night.
Night. All right, thank you, Carolyn, for being here. Do we have anything else, minutes or anything?
I have not received any minutes, but
I don't think so. All right, then I'll make them. I thank you for all sticking it out. It was a long night. Make a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Tom Callahan, aye.
Deirdre Hobson, aye. Sorry, Kevin.
Kevin Heine.
What did you teach